Is it live?
Yes.
Can I have know these things?
Who knows? It doesn't really matter if we're hot micing ourselves. It's happened to us 1,000 times before at esports events. Luckily, no one has said anything career ending yet.
Yeah. It's actually somewhat underwhelming, the fact that no one ever says anything. Makes you realize it's not actually as edgy the conversations we're having as we think.
I had one time where I was hot mic'd and it actually was pretty bad, but nobody remembers that it happened. So good luck there, internet detectives. You won't even know what event it was. It was so small.
That's why it's so shameless that I don't know if you saw this, but Moses obviously used to be in Room on Fire. So his name used to be like On Fire Moses, like all the rest of them. And when he rebranded it, because Room on Fire is not a thing anymore in CSGO, he put his name as Moses GG. And the only reason why is because he got hot mic'd years ago at that MLG major. And he was actually saying to Sir Scoot something like EG, motherfucker, because obviously Sir Scoot was in EG. But it only cut onto the part that said like GG mother, and then so everyone thought he said GG for some weird reason. So he's so shameless. He's trying to link back to that anecdote from like 4 years ago as his alias now. Like how tenuous is his reach? That's what it's called in battle rap, a reach, where you just like you reaching for that, mate. You haven't got anywhere close to that.
Yeah, to go back to the hot micing, people will think that's the time that I flipped off the camera. No, I'm actually proud of that one.
No,
that one was hilarious.
That was obvious. So looking right down the camera.
So what happened? The story about that one that's so funny is that we were doing. Remember when we were sponsored? This show, in fact, was sponsored by Alpha Draft. So IEM San Jose was sponsored by Alpha Draft. So they had us do like a pre-recorded fantasy thing for YouTube.
All right.
Yeah. And so they messed up the take. So just as a joke, I just like stopped talking and I'm listening to the producer by ear, then I flipped them off and then we just went ahead and did another take and it was fine. But what ESL did was they uploaded the wrong take, the one with me flipping it off, to the YouTube channel. So it wasn't even live and it was never supposed to be on there. But we got a great GIF out of it.
It's supposed to be a joke behind the scenes for production, right? That makes sense. What would be a next level troll is someone should like accidentally leak like a behind the scenes hot mic take of Doa. But what you would do is this. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but on all the DVD box sets of Seinfeld, they have all the behind the scenes and like the outtakes and stuff. And the most disturbing thing you discover is that Michael Richards, the actor who plays Kramer, in real life is actually like a Shakespearean theater actor who takes it all incredibly seriously and is actually getting really mad at other people when they're like messing up their lines. Because the whole point of comedy shows, you want the outtakes to be all like making each other laugh. Like, he's getting really mad when they're doing that because his acting is like, so on point, even though he's acting the most ridiculous character, obviously. So what he should do is have an outtake where it's Doa like that. And the idea is whenever he breaks, he's like, what? He's still on track. I'm trying to remember my fourth Star Wars references, mate. As though he was like actually a tyrant to work with. That would be straight fire, wouldn't it?
That would be really funny. He loves
because you could sell that. You can believe that.
What we learned from Watchpoint is actually that Doa is quite a good actor. He really sold like a lot of those skits, and his like comedic timing is really good. And some of the scripted stuff we did. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
Thing is, though, the worst person ever in those skits has to be Loco Doco. Like he wasn't even acting.
That's so great.
He was just saying words. That's it. It's amazing. Just a vacuum of no wasn't emoting in any way. He had no direction. He was just like. But you said that he is alive still. Like, what do you even? I don't believe anything you're saying right now. Does Loco Doco even have a theory of mind? I don't even know. I can't tell.
I thought how bad his acting was part of the charm for sure. I thought it
worked
great.
on the noir one because the joke is back then the bad actors were just all the normal actors. Like they used to just say stuff like, "Wow, really? Oh, he's dead." Like that is actually how they used to act back then.
If you really want to see like the best example from that time period of good acting versus bad acting, and there is a charm to the whole 40s acting style.
It's all right.
Yeah, like Humphrey Bogart's pretty cool. Like I love him, but it is very contrived. And if you actually want to see it, you guys can like Google this later. But there's a scene with Marlon Brando from A Streetcar Named Desire where the two women in the scene are trying that 40 style hammy acting, and he's like method acting. And it's this scene where they're eating chicken. So if you do A Streetcar Named Desire with the chicken eating scene, and Marlon Brando is just acting fucking circles around them. And you see the contrast between more of a more realistic style of acting and the previous style of acting. And it's really weird to watch. So I would definitely check that out if I were you to see like how good Marlon Brando was compared to everyone else of his generation.
Loco Doco has never encountered the Stanislavski method or whatever. Can't believe that is like the thing that he did. So yeah, definitely Loco Doco does anything about that. Nothing about that.
Oh man. So what are we going to talk about this week with Crumbz? I think today is going to be mostly an LCS show. After we did a lot of everything last week with LS, I think it's time to actually dive into the LCS because Liquid's looking a lot better.
It's getting interesting.
It's getting more interesting. It was pretty boring for the first like 5 weeks, and LEC was definitely a lot more interesting. LEC is still good, but
listen, give us a couple more weeks. We'll get that trash like Immortals, 100 Thieves, they'll all be out of there, and it'll be a real LCS then. We'll have Team Liquid, TSM, and Cloud9, the way it used to be.
I don't know.
Without all this like nouveau riche bourgeois crap that's coming now, we're going to get rid of all that. We're going back to the old aristocracy.
That's right.
The one thing we can all agree upon.
100 Thieves in there with their hype beast streetwear and the fucking Zoomers all over the place. Get the Zoomers out of League of Legends. That's what I say. You guys go back to Fortnite or Overwatch or wherever you want to go, but get out of here.
Probably that new game, like, oh, I think that new game is good. I'm a pro in that game. Like, just get
can
out
we discuss that?
Hasn't even come out yet. What are you talking about? Even Henry G's played it like once. Why are you all pretending like you all know it's Street Fighter? It's Riot Games, for fuck's sake.
Henry G is all over that game.
It's weird how
when I talk to
him.
Isn't
it? Oh.
He's played it one time and he's convinced, man. He is 100% convinced.
It's because I've experienced this before, mate. Unfortunately, the people who haven't actually been in a Riot or a Blizzard game are like, they're like people, you know, like that old anecdote of like the Japanese soldier who's still on an island now because he doesn't know World War II ended, but he's just watching his sports with the gun. They're like those people. They don't know that it's like a game dev just ruining your whole career. I don't think that happened to me. Right, I'll just go into a Riot Games game. Like, as a guy coming from a game that has edgy banter where I've actually had like screenshots leaked of the sort of extracurricular activities I get up to. This won't be all fine. It'll all work out for me. Like, are you for real? Like, that's why it's only people who've been in Blizzard and Riot Games understand this world. This is like New Romance or something. We're interfacing with the Matrix right now. This isn't real life.
I said this on Twitter. I don't want to get Crumbz in trouble, so like I don't want to have him be part of this conversation. But I said this on Twitter, which is that talent is secondary to kissing the ring. Like if you look at the number of people that Riot passed over, well,
it's better than the list of people they hired. That's the joke.
Like Froskerin for years was not acknowledged by Riot. Papa Smithy, I literally had conversations where I tried to put him forward for LCS.
He got turned down for LCS, I believe he said in my interview.
Yes.
Another one that like some genius there told him like, you know what, Papa Smithy, don't think this commentary thing's for you, son. So yeah, well, you obviously knew what we were talking about, didn't you? Meanwhile, Door's over there. It's like, you know what, Door? You don't seem like the sort of person who could come up with an iconic phrase. You haven't got the move, Door. It's like, give me a break. You know,
so,
like...
And also, here's the other thing about Valorant and casting, and I do want to talk to Crumbz about Valorant because I think it's important. I know this is a league show, but I do think it's important to discuss it with your Counter-Strike background and my Overwatch background, and also Crumbz is the perfect person because he's Overwatch in League too. So, like, we need to talk about it.
But this could be the League of Legends subreddit, the way we're just talking about Valorant all the time, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, apparently that's just cool. It's the way people actually say, yeah, but the thing is, though, they don't have a subreddit for Valorant. That's irrelevant. That was never the point. The point was the relevancy rule. What are you talking about? Why are you just repeating their talking points? Their stupid ass, like NPC level response. Like, yeah, but what if it's allowed to break the rules because I make the rules? Like, oh, you explained it. It's okay for him to do it. Like, what are you talking about? It's irrelevant.
See, we can talk about Valorant because we don't have any rules to this show about what we can and can't talk about.
It's not technically a League of Legends channel. This is just a show that happens to feature League of Legends on it. It used to be the Nines. We had Fraudad on it and everything. He's knowing about League of Legends. I assume.
He did cast League in 2012.
He knows a little bit.
In 2012, he did. He actually was, when I was running my tournaments, he was one of the casters for it. But this was before he went to NASL.
You just said 2012 though. Like you may as well not. That's like saying someone played League of Legends but to like level 15 or something. So you've never played League of Legends. Like he didn't cast League of Legends, mate. He was just casting something like, oh, the guy with the dragon with the buff. Oh, he's going in crazy. 1, 2, 3. Gets the 3 kills. Like he wasn't casting League of Legends. There was no macro. He didn't know anything about buffs. There's no, like all the actual stuff of the game. That's back when people were multi-game casters, wasn't it?
The thing about the Valorant casting, to go back to that, is that I know a lot of the Riot casters, like the League casters, want to go over and do that game. And, what's interesting is that many of these people have never casted another game before. And so
seems weird you'd want to pick a game like that then if you were specialized in League of Legends.
Yeah, it's very different. It's an FPS and it's also like a tactical shooter. So I haven't done a tactical shooter before either. So, I mean, I'm not interested in casting the game, like to be clear. But I find it curious that so many people are like convinced. And my favorite part were the responses to that tweet, people saying like, oh yeah, maybe it'll be a good place for up and coming casters. There will be no up and coming casters who get into this game. I promise you, because there's going to be so many veteran casters who are like super hot on Valorant. There's already way too many that could possibly cast this game that I have heard from personally who are interested. So there's no chance. In fact, here's a hot tip to up and coming casters. If you want to be a professional caster, you should start casting Counter-Strike or League or Overwatch right now, because the top casters from those games might leave and go to Valorant, leaving spots there. That's the strat. That's the strat. And I'll tell you what my strat is. My strat is just to make a cool show about Valorant, like this one, once we have the studio. That's my strat. So I'll be there, but I'm going to do Valorant my way, right? We can do our own stuff here where we can do whatever we want. Speaking of the studio, hopefully the end of the month. That's the latest update.
I don't, bearing in mind we haven't seen him vaguely enough to know if that game's actually good or not. It doesn't mean it's bad. Like, it looks okay. But one of the reasons why I think people just are going way overboard with that game is this is where you can tell the people who aren't happy with where they are in their life and their career, like they don't like the game they're in, or the game isn't big enough, or it doesn't have the trajectory that they want it to have, or they're not where they want to be within that game. So what they do is just like, it's like one of those ridiculous things from like the Middle Ages where there was this dream that in America all the streets were paved with gold or whatever, and all these idiots in Europe believe in that shit. Like that's like what you're like right now, trying to go to like, oh, Valorant, everything will be, everything's amazing in Valorant. There are no mice in Valorant. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is 5 goes west or something like. Some ridiculous pipe dream.
It's like the 1849 California gold rush, where a lot of those people, it took them months, if not probably like 6 months to go from St. Louis and get over 2 mountain ranges, the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Nevada, and their stupid wagons. And when they get there, most people found that there was nothing there at all. You know how people actually made money? Selling tools to the idiots trying to get the gold. You know who's going to make money off of Valorant? Reginald and TSM, as he provides you the guide sites so you could try and get your Valorant gold. That's who's going to make the money is Reginald. But anyway, be the person who sells the pickaxes and the gold pans to the idiots. Don't be the person looking for the gold.
Speaking of which, that's a perfect segue into Crumbz, whose job on the analyst desk is to give you NPCs water cooler talking points that you can pretend you came up with yourself in an easy, fun, and entertainingly digestible manner. And that's what he's going to do right after this break.
Very good. This is Cloud Connections, presented by AT&T. We have Crumbz on this week, another week with another caster where we just have one person who we know can talk well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a bit of a crapshoot, but this week it's good.
I actually saw, interestingly enough, I saw there was a tweet where it said something, Crumbz, like that you once won a game in LCS without getting any kills, any deaths, any assists, or something. Now, listen, on the one hand, that sounds impressive until you then think about it, which is why you getting carried. What the fuck is that? There's actually scientific proof you got carried.
Wait, carried? No, it's not that we won.
It's a perfect
we lost.
Oh, you
You
lost it. I thought they
lost.
said you won one. Right. Okay.
No.
That's even worse. You're just a traitor who doesn't even die with his men. Like, what happened to going down with the ship?
I was always down to go down with the ship, but sometimes there's not even anything to go down for. You're just like, I guess we just lost.
He's that guy who's just playing like at least just repelling out of the fight. Like, see ya, I'm out. It's like, what? The other jungler?
Yeah, he's just nittily hopping over walls and just trying to throw spears.
Yeah, healing people. I'm like, I did my job, guys. It's up to you. That's the trick, right? You pick a champion. It's like what Wiggly did yesterday. You just place a drawing, only buy utility items. You know, kind of like the Aegis meta where you just buy Aegis. Like, I did my thing, guys. I gave you the aura. You had to carry. Oh, whoops.
Oh God. So let's talk about Valorant first, because that's probably the biggest news this week, especially for people. This combination of people I think is really interesting because you and I have both worked on Overwatch League, Crumbz. We've worked on League of Legends. Thorin here has worked on Counter-Strike. I will be working on Counter-Strike soon. So I know we have like 2 minutes of gameplay to go off of.
You want to know my strategy?
Have you played it?
Valorant
Let's start
strategy.
there.
So, no, I have not played it.
Okay.
But I have a strategy for it already, which
Come on, tell us.
the strategy it's kind of what you guys are saying, because I know I'm not getting first dibs on Valorant. There's no way. Why the hell would I get first dibs on this game?
League of Legends,
Everybody wants to go to Valorant, so I'm just thinking I can just stay here. I'll plant my flag, they'll leave, and then I'll just get better. Great.
I do think that is the correct strategy in this instance, as opposed to rolling the dice. I mean, League of Legends is still the biggest esport in the world.
I like League. I don't know.
It's great.
I still enjoy the game. So it's like, what if you jump over and then you don't like the game? All right, you're doomed. So it's kind of like, I like what Thorin was saying, how if you're just eyeing that game altogether, you probably didn't have it that good in what you were doing in the first place. If you're that quick to jump ship, it's like, you're out there, you're at a bar with your girl, and then suddenly you just see some random thought, a few drinks, you're like, oh, let's go, I gotta get in on that. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, your current relationship says a lot about your current relationship, doesn't it?
You're basically everyone in the industry who's just clamoring over Valorant, which, by the way, sounds like some sort of a Planet World in the Fifth Element movie or something like. But you're out there just clamoring over that. That's because you're just someone trapped in a loveless marriage with some fucking disgusting sow, and then you're out there on Christian Mingle just trying to mix it up, trying to get in the game, aren't you? Like, just get over it, and just do good by her, you fucking scumbag.
That is quite the analogy.
There we go. I hit all the points. That's the good thing.
Why do you got to do Christian Mingle?
Yeah.
Daddy, like
I don't know. I had to pick a random at the end, didn't I, just to make it singing.
They have so specific ones now. I think you can do like farmers mingle. You got like Hispanic
farmers
stuff in
only.
The United States. Yeah, farmers only. Like,
Here's
there's
the
a
thing,
lot.
you know, the funniest.
Are there actually so many people who are Christian or farmers that they're legit using this straight up? It's not just like I have to use it and pretend like you like sin, like, it's not people just pretending. Is it for real that people actually Christian?
So what was super funny is for like the first couple of years, like last year I was in Korea and the first year I was back in the States, Facebook kept sending me all of these ads for Asian only dating sites, I presume because I lived in Korea. And I was just like, Facebook, this is really not for me.
Dude, Facebook has dating now too. They have like a function that's the same as all the other dating apps, but built into it.
This is where Mark Zuckerberg will just sell a service where you just literally get notifications like, yeah, he's cheating on you again. It's with your sister actually this time. Like, that'll be the next level.
Yeah, there could be an esports only dating service, but it's kind of unnecessary because it's just those gross parties where people hook up with other people over and over and over again.
Weren't we there? Weren't we somewhere like that like 2 weeks ago, Marty?
We were. We were not doing that, but we were. We were there.
Who needs some sort of League of Legends only dating app when there's League of Honeys?
Exactly. They do. They organize themselves. Really, everyone who is
Crumbz
interested
just
in
had
these
like
services.
a flashback. That was like he was in.
Like,
God,
what is my brain thinking?
I thought I'd forgotten all about that.
No, there's those. I mean, I've heard of some apps that people use that you literally put in your LP, you link your account, and based off of your MMR, people will date you for that.
This sounds like the LEC pros.
That's not what I
go. From CERN or something. Like, what is this?
That's not my play. I know some people that use that, and apparently people find diamond players to be a quality.
That sounds like Forgiven's idea of love or something. What are you guys talking about? What is that? Like, if you fail the MMI, it's just over already. Like, it could have worked between us.
That actually goes back to the old Chicks Dig ELO team that used to exist in 2012. Oh my god,
they had it right all along.
All right, we do need.
Well, if you meet someone there, you can say that you know that they are in fact gold efficient. So checks out.
So Valorant, you haven't played it, Crumbz. I've talked to a bunch of people who have played it. I imagine Thorin has done the same. So what are the initial thoughts as a CS:GO enthusiast, Thorin, about what you've seen so far?
The big problem I have is I don't even really see where people are getting the CS:GO angle. As far as I can tell, it's all stuff like Volcano was a CS:GO for many years ago. Yeah, to me, it's way more like TF2 from Valve or elements of Overwatch. Like, obviously, the abilities look more like Overwatch. Like, so I don't really see where the CS vibe comes in at all. I guess the guns are vaguely CS related, but I'd say they seem more like, again, like Overwatch or Call of Duty or something. Like, I don't really see them as it doesn't feel like the tactical aspect that they were all claiming it was.
In what way? Because it seems like, from talking to Henry G, and he said all this publicly, is that, it's 12 rounds per half. We do know they have bomb sites, because we've seen even maps with 3 bomb sites, A, B, and C, which seems like too much for a 5-person game.
Yeah, but just the abilities alone mean it'll be nothing like Counter-Strike.
Well, having read through all of the abilities, and my understanding is that you must purchase them in game. I do think that that's a lot of them are just Counter-Strike utility, and also I'm not even sure how valuable is healing in a game with very low time to kill. It seems like healing would be irrelevant.
So the characters regenerate health. That's what I did see in the gameplay.
Okay. I'm not a fan of that, but they can regenerate health. Do they regenerate health because they're being healed, or do they do it like Halo where the shield comes back?
I think it's like Halo.
Okay.
I'm not too specific, but I do know it's an alpha. It's an alpha footage. If you remember, like the Overwatch alpha, it was a long ways from what the Overwatch game turned out to be.
All right. I think I would be surprised if the healing even matters so much. So, people in chat are saying that they don't actually regen. So I don't know, but I do think it's going to be more like CS:GO, where you just have it. It says that people have said you have to buy the abilities. You're only going to get 1 ultimate or so per half, which still for a res is too much. And the reason why I hate res and FPS is you and I lived through the Mercy meta, Crumbz, where any hype play just gets erased, right? Which is incredibly annoying.
It's the same in every game, actually. If you think about even a game like League, when GA or a Zillion is the meta to go, no one enjoys that. It is one of the most anti-fun mechanics in every game, no matter what genre you're playing. So I just don't see it being successful with having a res. Like, you just tweak that and you're fine. Yeah,
I think when we had Overwatch, what was so shitty about having the res in the game was that you would see somebody snipe somebody, like a Widowmaker would get an amazing sniper shot, and then everybody would cheer, and you'd be like, actually, as a caster, I'd be like, that doesn't matter, because a few seconds later, that person was just rezzed. And it's very confusing to the viewer, because hype moments just get instantly deflated. It's not good. So
not a fan of that, but I mean, I still think that we just have so little to base off of the game. Even I personally, I'm not a writer. Sure. I don't actually have the access to the game besides the videos that everybody else has access to. So I think that from the things that people have told me, a lot of the overreactions or the reactions are way out of proportions, and almost all of them just hot takes versus anything based off of facts.
Exactly. We all know the future's diabolical anyway.
Okay, calm down there, Slasher. I think what's interesting about the game is that I don't think it's actually going to take away any Counter-Strike fans. I think Counter-Strike fans want a realistic military shooter and not weeb Counter-Strike.
No, that's one of the weird things. It's like it's kind of a bit like Dota in this sense. The reason why Dota, it doesn't matter what they do, will never be more popular than League of Legends has nothing to do with how good the game is. It's a fabulous game. It's like way too hardcore a game compared to what League of Legends is. So in the same sense, it's amazing that Dota and Counter-Strike are as big as they are. Like they're actually pretty hardcore games. I don't think you'll ever get like the most popular game. There's a reason why Fortnite is way more watered down in FPS than Counter-Strike is. I don't think Counter-Strike will ever be number one. So if you're not going to get all of the Counter-Strike audience, that's actually, there's less people for your FPS. So it can be tough to make another FPS work, I think.
I just hope that we can just switch over people playing shit like FIFA into this game, and then that's it, right? Just get them from all the other games that are some single player people that are just out there playing single campaigns. Like I think there's a plethora of players that you can still grab to make a consistent game without stealing from any other community.
And I also think that as we look at the coming year, there's so many FPS games right now that any prediction of Valorant's dominance within this space, I think, is really off. And I think people who are looking to transition in this game as some like mega break where this becomes the biggest game in the world are way, way, way off. Because it's going to take years to get to that point with this game. Counter-Strike right now has its highest player base ever in history. The free-to-play has boosted many of the numbers. There's so many FPSs. Like, if you want to play BR, there's FPSs for that. Apex is a great game. You can play PUBG. You can play Fortnite. There's arcade shooters like Overwatch. Overwatch 2 looks like it's going to come out probably within the next year, if I had to guess. And then we have...
Plus, there'll be new games. Like,
plus, there are other FPS, too.
You all lied and pretended like you like to play a chess version of League of Legends, so I'm sure any game that comes out, you'll play. Give me a break.
Will it actually take over something like Crossfire?
Exactly, in Asia. I'm not even sure if China is allowing new games to be released. There was a freeze on all new games in China for a very long time, so I'm not sure if they can release.
Well, what happened? Did some of the games that have a virus?
Which, by the way, I want to get to that topic. I really want to get to
what
that.
The hell?
I think it's huge, dude. No joke. That's actually, yeah. Like we'll get to it later, I'm sure.
Okay, fair enough.
But
spoiler there.
For years, the Chinese government wasn't allowing games to be released, so.
They still monitor it as far as I know.
Yeah.
Like I believe last year there was a thing where they told Tencent they couldn't release another game or something.
Yeah. And so I'm not sure what the status of that is right now, but as we go into this next year, there are just so many FPSs. The market's so saturated that there's kind of something for everybody, which means I think it's going to be very hard for one game to take over. Now, they said summer 2020 it will be released, which is amazingly fast. That would be very impressive if they can get it done by the end of summer, by like August. Especially with the footage that we saw. A lot of people said it looked like TF2. The lead art designer of TF2 is the one who's doing all the graphics for the games. They were easy to read. I wasn't wowed by their aesthetic, but it seemed pretty clean, just kind of boring, in my opinion. But that's alpha footage, so I'm not reading too much into that.
I hope that if it's artistically anything like TF2, that there is a way for the community to make the same kind of community videos that TF2 was really famous for, because that is what got me into TF2 in the first place. Just those little montages showcasing the characters. And if this is a character-based shooter where you're having all these agents, as a new confusing word they're going for, I think that's a good way to bring in an audience that might not be initially interested in an FPS, but just interested in cool looking characters.
In my experience, that fan base isn't too great for esports, having come from Overwatch.
Oh, but
people who are
do they want esports though? Like
people who are super interested in the IP generally are not the same people who are esports fans, because most esports fans don't care about the IP because they care about the competitive nature of the game.
I care about the IP.
You do? No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. That's
he just means it because remember, he used to be like a game designer, so he has to pretend anyone cares about crap. Like, the villagers have rallied around Lord Farquaad.
Like, like a game like Magic, right? Like, I like Magic not just for the depth of the game, but because of the art. The art legitimately draws me to the game more than
you're actually looking at the art on those cards.
Yeah, dude, the art of the flavor text.
Planeswalker is so dope.
Oh, yeah. I do that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh God.
You got to keep in mind, Thorin, I entered esports through Yu-Gi-Oh. That was how I got it.
Get me out now. Get me out now. You're the one of the people who's like unironically using that like analogy of like he's building the legs of Exodia or whatever that like, stupid ass.
Yeah, it's a funny meme. Yeah,
Super team
Exodia is a funny
metaphor.
meme.
Yeah.
Oh God. All right. Well, I think we've discussed Valorant enough with the 2 minutes of footage that we have. That's not really anything to go off of until
Right, what are we going to
somebody
talk about
plays
now? Are we going to talk about the horrifying virus spreading around,
Okay, let me start.
potentially going to end the
start
world?
with that. All right,
or are we going to talk about the coronavirus? Which is it, TSM and LCS? Oh, you almost messed it up there, but I still got it out anyway.
Yeah, okay, so like,
All right, let's do it.
I said like a month ago, or even a month and a half ago, I was like, what's going to happen with MSI and Worlds? Because it's supposed to, like, Worlds is a big deal. And now that Korea is getting quarantined where you can't fly in and fly out, same thing with China, flying those international players into the international competitions might not be a viable thing. So I think Riot has to legitimately consider the potential of canceling these events, to maybe even canceling something like Worlds, because it's very clear that the virus is just going to continue to spread. Even though it has a low mortality rate, they're just not going to risk it. I think it's a really serious deal, and it actually makes a very odd world where the timeline is Cloud9 is the greatest team internationally, but the events are canceled.
They win Worlds.
And no one gets to
No
go
one knows
because
the great mystery of League of
virus
Legends.
just fucked everything up. So the one time where it feels like there might be hope internationally, no tournaments happen.
Monty, how many times have I made that joke where when they're like, what would it take for TSM to win the Worlds? I'm always like, right, get a voodoo doctor, see a shaman, put a hex on someone, hypnosis. Obviously, I should have just said, like, virus wipes out or affects most major countries and the international events are just cancelled. Therefore, whoever's the top of LCS just is the de facto #1 team in the world. That was the secret all along. The best part of all of that, though, Crumbz, is it ties into our next topic, which is TSM isn't #1 when finally NA gets its corridors. But in the end, that's why Jack came back at the end. He was like trying to come back like Gandalf and still affect things for TSM. Didn't work for him. It's going to be Cloud9.
So we do need to talk about the Worlds thing, because I think that's really critical. So let's set the stakes for this from Riot's perspective.
They had to scout. They had to be scouting, and I know for a fact they were scouting when when it was announced. They had to have been scouting because that's what they do a year before.
Yes.
So the scouting had to be put on hold for the venues, which is delaying everything.
So here's how bad this is for Riot, and it's not their fault. And having gatherings of 80,000 people like they did last time they were in China for the Bird's Nest would be disastrous for the public health. So I do think that they would make the right call in this. But let's just talk about how bad this is for Riot, because it actually just sucks for them. This is their 10-year anniversary of the World Championship, or of League of Legends, I should say. So they obviously announced all those games. League came out in 2009, so this is the first Worlds, I think, that has come since the game was launched, because it was launched in October of 2009. So this was supposed to be their big spectacular. So I know that they've been planning a lot for this when it comes to what was going to happen in China this year. And the thing is that we're going to hear very soon about this, I would imagine, because if they're going to move it, they need to find a stadium or a venue that they can do this in outside of China quickly. And these venues, stadiums are booked a year plus in advance, typically, in order to make up for the calendar. They already had to move MSI. And what does that mean for Worlds? Is Worlds just going to be played in an empty studio? That's a possibility. Are players even going to be able to come and leave China in order to participate? What are these tournaments looking like? It is a disaster for something that this was going to be the Worlds to end all worlds in terms of production value and in terms of the spend that Riot was going to put towards this. So this is a giant problem. I have no idea how they're going to solve it.
It still could be the world.
I think you have to cancel
it. It could
go ahead and actually hold it.
Yeah, I think you have to cancel.
Just hold that motherfucker, the apocalypse.
I don't think you have to cancel it yet. I think you just have to start considering the possibility that you're doing this in a in an empty studio somewhere.
The problem is, though, if they do actually have to hold Worlds, and even if they just can't invite one of Korea or China, it's already pointless. Like,
exactly. So if you don't have those two, like, what are you? You
it's
win.
just the asterisk World Championship at that point in time.
You will never be able to. And as a player, like, hey, I won Worlds, but Korea and China wasn't there. You didn't win.
Yeah, you did.
Inside, you know, you didn't win Worlds. So
it's just like Fnatic never won Worlds. That's some bullshit. Yeah, no, I agree. There's a huge asterisk. And if they can even come, because, of course, the big news was that LCK is shutting down starting on the 6th of March as the spread of the virus happens in Korea. So before they were just playing in the empty studio, and now they're not even doing that. That's how bad things have gotten. So I do think it's probably, I mean, the Center for Disease Control in America said just a matter of time till it hits the States. It seems like it's too much to contain.
It already started.
Oh, yeah.
When it broke out in Korea, or in China, we already had cases like a week after that in Orange County, and then it was in mainland Los Angeles as well.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think the whole thing is it's going to be a really hard call for Riot. I think we're going to hear soon, though, because you have to make this decision because you have to book venues. So there's not really a choice. Like, for them, they are going to have to say, without being able to see the future in 7 months from now, what exactly the plan is. And what sucks is that it could all clear up by then potentially, and yet we still would have to maybe just do it in a studio or something. So it's a big bummer, and obviously this is affecting esports all over the place. Overwatch League had all its Korean and China homestands canceled. IEM Katowice in Poland went off in CSGO this last week without having anyone at all in the audience for it. It's been rough. And it's just going to continue to be rough. And we in esports are always, because we are a globalized structure and we are one of the sort of the bleeding edge of globalization in terms of the modern world, we're always going to get hit hardest by this shit. So sucks, but there we are.
I don't go to the gym now. There's too many people there grabbing sweaty shit. Got to do it at home.
You gave up on the gym. That's the coronavirus
no, I just have a
fear.
home gym.
I've got a question for you. Here's the topic we need to talk about.
Okay.
Speaking of people who say that competition doesn't matter, as people would often say if NA or EU was to win a Worlds without Korea and China. Doublelift, there's this whole drama that's popping off where I saw Dom was commenting on it, where one Doublelift was ill and he didn't play. And obviously they used Tactical, the TSM AD carry player, and won those games in Team Liquid. People have been focusing in on when Doublelift, repeatedly over the last few years, even when he was in TSM famously, thinks that like the spring split doesn't matter. And if you're someone who's dealt with burnout, like that's when, if anything, you can sort of take time off or not play as seriously. The idea is you ramp up and you try and win summer and you go to Worlds and all the rest of that jazz. Right? People got really upset about this topic on Reddit, I noticed, because they think that he's saying like he's not being like diligent in his career, basically. Like he's not giving it all to Team Liquid in the spring, or they were even, there was a very weird premise set up where people were sort of trying to say that they were making it sound as though when you reach a level of like how good you are in League of Legends, it's static, and that he's just chilling like at the top here and decaying over time somehow. But then somehow other people haven't overtaken him because he still wins all the splits. So I don't really understand that part of the angle. You get the premise at least.
Also, what's the question?
So the question is Doublelift doing the wrong thing if he actually is slacking in the spring because he doesn't think it matters, and then he's presumably going to eventually turn on the afterburners, let's say, in 2 months?
I mean, so Team Liquid is a team that does that in all regular season. Like they don't really try until it's time for playoffs. I think Impact is the perfect player for that. In the regular season, he's always and then playoffs come around. Holy shit, international play. Oh my God, he can actually play against the best and not int and keep up. Where was this Impact all along? After playing for so long, they realized, okay, we can actually afford to go a little easier during the regular season and kick it into high gear. And it's now that they fell so far behind that they have to kick it into high gear. As for Doublelift, I personally think it's a combination of things. And one of them, finish this sentence, please. Girlfriends. What do you think I'm going to say after that?
Are very difficult to maintain in the esports sector, especially if you're a young adult male playing professionally within said industry.
Yeah.
PS.
And he's not the only one. He's not the only one, man. And it's, I don't want to just keep reposting a video of like 5 years ago every single time, but I feel like it continues to be so relevant in a lot of these players. And I mean, again, he's not the only one, and it's hard because it's something it's something I've experienced recently, just having to live on your own and be like, hey, how do I think about relationships coming from being a baby inside a player's lives? Because you don't learn anything from real life. You're playing League of Legends all day. You don't know shit. So then when that gets thrown at you, you don't know how to handle it, especially to stay at the top level. And even more if you're actually really into someone. Like, there you have no chance. You're hopeless.
And let me put it this way. There have been so many things, like relationship issues, that people behind the scenes have known about, and the fans wonder why certain professional players suddenly take some sort of like giant plunge in skill. And obviously, it's not anybody's place who knows about this to say anything about what's going on, but behind the scenes, it's often very obvious what is happening, and it's funny to see people's speculation. In my experience, there have been very few relationships, unfortunately. I say this unfortunately because I do think that, and I have seen very positive relationships, and not to speculate, this is not to say anything at all about Doublelift's situation. Yeah. But in general, it's rarer to see situations where it's supportive and helpful rather than sort of harmful to a player.
It's like Overwatch. It's not about the girlfriend meta, it's about the wife meta, because the wife meta represents you have stability and you're like, you know what, we're a team, we're committed to this, and there's that understanding of, yeah, we can just, like, I can play.
The problem is,
but girlfriend meta is halfway there. You're not committed.
You need a wife that's like Mercy, who's just going to resurrect you when you're down, you know, things are going bad. You don't want a wife like Widowmaker who's just taking off the other team's heads and fucking with your team synergy. That's not what you need in this game.
You want to support, you don't want to carry.
And also, I will say this. The amount of times that player performance has been tied to a player losing their relationship and then that person going to a different pro player and then tilting the player who got dumped off the face of the planet is insane. Like, that happens.
That's how TSM,
the time.
That's how TSM could have tilted Samsung White. They should have just gotten with all their girlfriends, but not even in a degrading way. Just being a better man than any of the Samsung White players and showing their girlfriends the time of their lives.
Oh my God.
And then they'd have literally just said, "Listen, you're cool and everything, Matt, but
that's how we win worlds."
I found true love with Bjergsen. He's a Renaissance man. He showed me around Italy, you know, showed me what true romance is. You're just here doing sick flash thresh hooks, and that's not enough for me. So sorry, but I'm out. Right. And he'd be like, "But Dandy, we did everything together." And like, yeah, that's part of the problem as well. That's weird.
So in this case, I know nothing about Doublelift's relationship. I'm not saying that it falls into that category whatsoever, but I'm just saying this is a general discussion about
the average.
It's a general discussion about what happens, because a lot of these guys, like you're saying, Crumbz, they are spending all their time playing League of Legends. They don't have much of a social life, and so they don't get out, don't meet people outside of the esports scene, and so these relationships all end up getting recycled amongst the pro players as a result, and I personally think that's unhealthy. Now, we've talked about this on this show, how in Doublelift's case, I just thought he should take a break for spring, because he's done that before, and he came back, you know, energized, looking a lot better. If he doesn't think spring matters, then why not just take a break? He has proven. Is there another player that's been active as long as he have, going back to like Curse when he was a support player in 2011 in NA? He's consistently been at the top of his game, consistently been a top player. And so why not just give him a break? He liked streaming the last time. Just let him stream for you, put Tactical in, and then bring him back when he has the motivation back again. Because he's not playing like he has motivation right now, which is, it's happened before. I don't think it's a big deal if he misses a split.
I think taking a break is something that players are afraid of because they're unaware of the longevity that a League of Legends career could have. If they were to say miss a split, will they lose the ticket on a team? Is that a conversation that they even want to or feel comfortable breaching with a team and just saying, hey, like, I'm not feeling it the split, even though you paid me a ton of money, can I just take half a split off? But I personally was of the opinion that Riot made it really obvious that spring split does not matter. Yes. It does not matter. And so seeing teams not throw caution to the win and focus on experimenting in the game and just doing whatever they want and trying to just enjoy playing together on stage and just going with wild picks, whether it's lanes or role swaps or new champions that just are completely off the wall. That never happened. For some reason, they're playing freaking every week of LCS like it was the last week of summer, making a run towards Worlds, and everyone's just embarrassing themselves trying to play the game that they haven't even figured out. And so I just think that it's a giant misfiring from either the organization staff that is saying we need to try at this point, because there's no point to burn out at this stage. Like if I were coaching a team, I would want to make the team's performance mirror how MMA fighters prepare for a fight, right? You ramp up the intensity all the way to the day of, and then you peak, and then you have a great showing, and then you go back to it again. That ramp up should have been spring. You should not give a shit about spring, summer, about MSI. Just keep ramping up all the way until summer playoffs, and then you have your great performance, and then you go to Worlds.
I agree. I mean, I think that's why some of the criticism is also silly, because when you actually look at the stakes for the pro players, like you've said, there aren't any. We discussed this with the format changes at the start of the season.
Dude, no joke. The players didn't even know the format changes, by the way. You ask the players right now, I bet you over half don't even know that the playoffs have changed. So many they're like, oh, top four get a bye? Oh, it's double elimination? Oh my God, I didn't know that. No joke.
By the way,
isn't that the purpose of the Players Association, is to negotiate some of this stuff?
Yeah, the Players Association is a acronym. That's what it is.
By the way, can we just acknowledge also what the glorious anecdote that came out of when Doublelift did take that break in Season 7 spring, where when he came back, initially, people might remember it wasn't for TSM, because at the time TSM was using Wild Turtle and they were top of the league and they were doing awesome. So what he had to do was get Reginald to let him stand in for Team Liquid at the time, who was in really bad shape. They were like near the bottom of the league.
That was also one of the shadiest things that ever happened in professional
league. Course. Like, it shouldn't be allowed at all. That's ridiculous.
They were in danger of getting relegated.
That would be like right now if G2 was just friends with Schalke and LEC. And they were like, you know what, actually, you can just borrow caps and we'll take someone else and you just have them as your starting mid laner. Oh, what's that? You didn't get relegated. I mean, you can't get relegated anymore, but you know what I mean? Like, you're fine now. You made the playoffs. Like, obviously it was shady, but here's the part that was glorious. When they did have to go down and play the promotion match, the team they beat to get back into LCS was Loco Doco's Gold Coin United, where he was just grinding away. He was like winning the challenger scene. He was like, I think we're going to do it this time, guys, which happened like 2 times. Well, he had all these really good players. Like, there weren't even any bad players there. They were all straight fire. Like, I even had Mad Life on his team. And then the best part is, obviously for Doublelift, why does he give a fuck about winning some promotion match to get back in LCS? Wasn't even his team. So it's like that classic scene from the original Street Fighter movie, Crumbz, from like 1994 or whatever, where you have, where Raul Julia, who's playing that brilliant role before he died, of M. Bison, he's talking to Chun-Li. And Chun-Li tells him that story about how, he came to her village and killed her father or some bullshit, And then M. Bison gives that baller-ass speech where he says, like, for you, when it was the greatest day of your, the most important day of your life when I came to your village, blah, 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 all that shit. And then he says, for me, it was Tuesday. That's like what it was like for Doublelift in that game versus Loco Doco. Like, Loco Doco, like, worked for everything. He fought for everything. Like, this moment means everything. Doublelift was like, oh, it's just Tuesday, right? Slap these little nerds around, get out, Mad Life. And then he just came back and all. Yeah, so just the idea that Doublelift just took a day off and just ruined Loco Doco's life and then came back to CSM. Brilliant anecdote.
You know what's distressing, Thorin, is remember that old OGN video of Loco and Mad Life with like the bikini girls and everything like that?
Yes.
So I was looking for it the other day and it's gone. It's been deleted.
No way.
It's so
Loco
tragic.
Doco had like Google censor that video or something. Because the thing is, why were they doing that thing as well, right? Because what that confirms is that I knew anyway, which is that Korea also plays into that weird angle that Japan just leans into of like, ooh, we're all perverts. It's like, why are you even leaning into that? Keep that secret. That's a bad thing to be a pervert. They're like, ooh, look at all the girls in bikinis. Like, what? This is some creepy stuff, man.
I think Loco said he did it just to make Mad Life feel awkward. I think that was his intention.
Nah, that's whack.
bullshit.
That's some BS angle, isn't it? Like, I just did it to make him.
That's revisionist
right.
history.
I'm not pervert.
That's revisionist history.
I know. That's some BS right there.
Oh man. So yes, I
mean, I realise like Mad Life is one of the only people in the world who could make Loco Doco the cool, edgy one, or like Jane Silent Bob or some mad pair like that.
He's got to hold on to Mad Life for dear life. Man. It's like, you're my contrast. Get in here.
Oh god. Well, that was a fun romp down memory lane. Now we can talk about TSM, right,
Yes.
Thorin?
Okay.
We actually. So here's the thing: we actually haven't talked about TSM for a few weeks now on this show. But this.
Well, here's the joke. You said in the group chat for this particular call, you said, like, let's talk for a long time about how much TSM sucks. And I said,
Yeah, I did.
Isn't that the unofficial theme of the show?
Yeah.
That's basically what it's. I mean, I believe that is why we're even banned by TSM once upon a time. Even though Reginald said it was Summoner's insight because he hasn't got a few sandwiches short of a picnic. Let's be real.
I think what's funny about this show is, of course, we have to wait until TSM is down. You know, they were looking like they were getting better.
They were getting better for a while.
They were getting better, so we had to wait for that delicious 0-2 week to just kick them while they're down. 6-6.
But I have to say, though, that's one thing people aren't looking at, though. If you actually look at who they've beaten and who they've lost, because people did that classic thing again. Every week, it's all or nothing, is what it said on Twitter. Spoiler, it's nothing. Because all the 2-0 weeks versus the Bombs, the only good team they've beaten is like Dignitas or something. Most of the other wins they had were against the lower teams. It wasn't like the Cloud9. Obviously, no one's beating Cloud9, but you know what I mean? Like, they're not beating
That's
Fly
the thing,
Quests
though.
of the world.
It's
Come on.
all lower teams right now.
Yeah, they're just farming them.
We figured it out. Some guy in chat, I think I was on the Hotline League, saying, what is the best description of the LCS right now? Cloud9 is a 5'9" guy among a group of midgets. And that's what the LCS is at right now. So it's like TSM is not that they're relatively bad, they're objectively bad. But relative to the LCS, they're actually a top team.
So let's talk about the TSM's schedule so far, because they lost to Schernfire Team Liquid in week 1. They lost to Immortals in week 1.
Yeah.
Week 2, they beat EG and CLG. Okay.
Garbage.
Week 3, they go 2-0 again against Dignitas and Golden Guardians.
There we go. There's the one good win. Dignitas, okay.
Week 4, they go 0-2 against FlyQuest and C9.
Game over.
Week 5, they beat 100 Thieves and Evil Geniuses. And now week 6, they lose to Tactical's first LCS game in Team Liquid. And then somehow they also lose to CLG.
Yeah. They've lost to 2 different Team Liquid subs on a team that itself is imploding.
Oh, God. And what is so baffling to me about what is going on with them right now is, like, I don't even know. Okay. As just a general theory of sports, esports, games, you pick. Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of leaning into your strengths. And one thing that TSM statistically and objectively was doing very well was winning the early game. They were often up in gold. Dardoch was doing super well in the early game. So what the fuck is going on when they go up against Team Liquid and they decide to draft Maokai mid Sejuani jungle with Broken Blade on the Kayle? And this composition has to reach a very late stage of the game in order to be effective, and Broken Blade on Kayle must carry. But you need to level up Kale's ultimate in order for that to happen.
I love that you bring that draft up, because Kayle is not good into set. They actually saved the last pick into set. It is a garbage pick. I have played that matchup. So the idea is, oh yeah, you hit level 16 and you scale and you use your range to play against set. Set does not give a fuck. He walks at you, he stuns you, you have to ult, you're dead as Kayle. It's a bad matchup, and so they just lost that draft. They're losing games at draft.
And also, it was the way Team Liquid played, because I actually thought Team Liquid played this quite well. So, especially in the early game, guess what they did? First blood onto Kayle. Easy gank. Dardoch isn't there on the Sejuani. I feel like you can read that all day as a jungler, that they're going to have to come up and actually do something about it. And the other thing that happened was that TL just played a gold game with them. I legitimately, I think TL played this game really well against this draft. And if you look at the way they were actually handling it, TL is giving up dragons early. They're switching tactical to the top lane. They're playing around Herald to get plates and to get gold on their team. And then they're coming and fighting the dragon at third dragon so that they're still not going to be actually trying to scale into the late game, where you have at least a gold advantage to try and match. Not only that, but a lot of the time there was Broken Blade overextending to like a tier 2 in bot lane against the set, which makes the ganks really easy. The Mount Guy is just useless. But my point is, why would you play this composition? This is something that I would have expected Team Liquid to play last year. You know what I mean? Like a team fighting, scaling composition. And yet we're seeing a TSM team that has obvious strengths in the early game. And the real trouble is that they can't snowball their leads.
Whose galaxy brain level thought was this? Right, Crumbz, we're getting a lot of early leads, mate, and our jungler's popping off, but we can't close the game.
Exactly.
So the obvious strategy is don't play at all for the early game. Scale.
Yes,
and just
that's
play
what
in
I'm
the late
saying.
game exclusively. No, that's the point. It's like, what sort of...
So I'll tell you the big
They'll
galaxy
never expect
brain.
it.
So I looked at TSM's their docu-series. I think it's called TSM Legends, in the day after they lost to FlyQuest, where they had like a 9,000 gold lead. They played an early game composition, failed to execute, lost the game. And they were saying, yeah, you know what, we're okay with going for the early game. We don't want to be the team that scales. Fast forward, I think a two to 1 week later, they're playing this kale bullshit composition. I think that what ends up happening is that teams have 1 week of play where they say, we're going to commit to this strategy or this approach to our practice, and then a patch happens and the P brain just forgets what they just did a week ago. They're like, oh, we need to do this again. We need to just rethink about what we need to do again. So every week they're just changing the philosophy of how they approach the game.
Exactly.
Without committing to the original strategy.
Yes.
And it's the same shit TSM did last year as well. And in fact, every other year where they say, we need to play the early game. We know internationally the early game is what matters. And so they continue to over-index on this side while forgetting that they even did that halfway through. So they don't either secure the early game nor secure the scaling compositions, which, by the way, internationally, scaling always ends up being the win condition usually. So it's just, I really put it on the staff to fail, or in failing to commit to an identity from the start of the year. I guarantee you no one at the end of this year can look back to their journal they wrote day one LCS and say, oh, we did that. It's like, no, they're going to look at it and think it was written in Chinese from how different it was to their original plan.
Yeah, and that's what was so surprising about their strategy coming into this week, was that I actually thought they were doing pretty well. You know how hard it is to get those advantages in League of Legends? Like, that's something that should be an easy transition of getting a lead and transforming it into a win. That's much harder than teaching a team, oh, you need to do these things to like acquire the lead. So they were already, I think, well on their way. And so this swap in composition and tactic just makes absolutely no sense to me.
It's not a good comp either, because you have two threats against and so the other team just ignores everything else. It's what, Sejuani, Maokai, and what was the tank, like a Tom Kench? You're like, okay, I'm just gonna, like, the tanks don't kill anyone, so you can just dive the carries, and there's only one KO, so it doesn't even deal that much damage. It can't even split, because in the 1-4 or the 1-3, the 3 are useless, and if you do a 1-4, the 4 are also weak because they don't have KO, since you need it to protect the one carry.
Right. And you don't have damage really without the Kale, and especially because Tactical would just use bullet time to push them off objectives before they could even set up. Like, they were at half HP before the fight even started.
It's a big misread on the meta. I think that's what happened to them. We did a little thing called I was like prosecuting the TSM draft on their Pantheon game. I was like, they just, like, I don't hate the over-index in the early game. I hate the timing of it, because the patches were all shifting towards making the tanks stronger. So I felt like the game is actually dictating you to say, hey, look into these other champions and don't go crazy into the early game because we're nerfing them. And I'm a big believer of always starting from what is the game saying, like what is the game creating that is OP, work from that, as opposed to we just think that we need to do this, ignoring the patch notes. Like the patch notes are what is determining what's good.
But what about this though? Okay, that first game was obviously hilarious from the draft, and the way they lost it was great. The second game was like that was Shakespearean, Monty. That was like you've been in a marriage for 10 years. You come home, you notice already you can hear like music playing. You come in, there's all cool lighting, you know, like very ambient texture. There's all petals everywhere. You walk in, your wife's got the stockings out, the suspenders on. You know,
I like where this is going.
Exactly. Now you bring the passion back into your life, because there's nothing like seeing CLG with washed up ass poor belter, the notorious POB, jumping in this booth saying you're ready to die, TSM. Turns out they are, because they were hypnotized by his performance. Exactly, they couldn't wait it. That was hilarious.
Very good.
Actually hilarious.
BIG references. All right.
I could not believe it was happening as I was seeing it. Like, I think that before that, so
dude, that's like in the game, they really do have a minute where they can't play beyond that minute in the game.
CLG had actually not beaten TSM.
Must be years and years now. Right?
For over, I think it was 560 days.
Jesus.
And so this was one of the, and they were like, oh, it's not even a rivalry. We've just lost so much. Until now, where CLG brings it back. It's embarrassing, honestly. It's like, I felt like CLG, because it's kind of what happened with Shanghai Dragons, where you're doing so bad, teams are trying even harder to beat you because it's even more embarrassing. And when the playoff race is so tight, it's worse to get a loss to one of the teams that's out of it than one of the ones that is already competing. And I think that they actually prepared more for Team Liquid and thought CLG is going to be free.
A trap game, as we call it.
Game.
Free SM. That's the only free thing in that game.
They were the only free.
Exactly. The only discount in that game.
I don't even know what to say about this game. Like,
it was amazing.
It's
like
also
27 minutes onwards, I could just like light a cigar, have some fine brandy with me. This game. You know what? Come in here. Sit down. League of Legends. You ever seen it before? This is top quality entertainment.
I'm looking for this.
I've been loving that shit. It was amazing. I knew what was coming as well. I just knew as they let the kills bleed away, Crumbz, like this is just going to end in the most humiliating. And I knew exactly what they were going to do in production at LCS, which is put the camera straight onto Paul Belter, just looking like he always looks like he's in like the movie Big, where that little kid gets made into an adult. So he's like, I don't know what's going on. Man, what am I doing? Give me a break.
Okay, so I know exactly what TSM's problem is. So remember how I said they failed to read the patch notes when Yuumi got buffed and they lost a FlyQuest? The same shit happened in the game against CLG because Biofrost is playing dumbass support Senna. That is not the Senna that you play right now. You're supposed to play her with like as your
AD
marksman, right? So
with Spectral
Kobe's supposed to be playing it.
Yeah,
Biofrost is supposed to be some tank taking farmer. They didn't play it like that, so they didn't even read the patch notes on how the champion was played, which is even more frustrating because it was everywhere. I mean, other teams played it that same day. FlyQuest played it and crushed with it. It was on one of the sickest Sennas.
Well, it's also
what?
that Cloud9 did that last week, so they had a week to prepare for it. It's not like it happened earlier that same day, and this is such a surprise.
We made segments on the show, like 2 of them, about why and how you play this new Senna. So they're just completely oblivious to what is happening with the game, it seems, and all in their own heads about how they should be playing, but missing the mark completely.
I think I don't even know what to say about this game. It's also just completely different in terms of the strategy and the draft. I don't even know what Jarvan is supposed to do in this composition, frankly, because like if you're going to draft Ezreal, if you're going to draft the Ezreal Senna bot lane and you've got the Zoe in mid, you're going to be playing what is effectively a poke composition. And you want to split with the Mordekaiser or have Mordekaiser join your team fight and just sort of take out the Victor or probably the Rumble in the 1v1. And I don't know what the Jarvan is supposed to do. Like, lock down the victor in Rumble, I guess, but I think you already have MonteCristo for that, so I would have rather have seen something like an Elise in this draft or anything else, honestly.
Yeah,
Gragas?
I think the Jarvan is just their physical damage threat. I think I would have liked Gragas more. Then you're a little bit too much on the magic damage, but
I think you're fine with the Ezreal.
And the game really felt like CLG was actually trying to lose. Like Wiggly was kind of running it down with that first gank in top and then missing some smites at the dragon. So it felt like TSM really had a way back into the, like, they should have been able to cleanly beat CLG. It was CLG, but I think the bot lane just gave him no agency. Biofrost is not the guy that should be playing a champion like Senna, just sitting back and healing. Like, that's not it. I want to see him on something that engages. And when this engage is completely reliant now on Bjergsen and Dardoch, you don't have that playmaking that Biofrost was doing before that was actually really important for TSM to do anything in the early game.
Bjergsen's doing nothing in this TSM team anyway.
Well, when he's playing Maokai, what do you want him to do? What do you want him to do when he's playing Maokai, man?
Yeah.
Enough said.
What's he supposed to
right
do?
there. If you're the best player on the team, why are you being put on Maokai?
I mean, I think that draft was just a train wreck.
I
think it was just terrible.
That's GG. That's GG.
Those are the basic points that just elude those teams, right? You really need just a guy that has no context to League of Legends whatsoever in all of these teams. I'm a firm believer of that. And so you just have a guy that says, all right, who's your best? He's never heard of the game. And he just thinks, oh, I just feel like the best player should have the best pick. Like,
Exactly.
What? We've never thought about that. Shit. Oh, no. So, like, just have a guy that has no idea what's going on, constantly, like, think about the decisions.
It's like, sometimes I wish I was in those rooms, Crumbz, when they're talking and the player goes like, but the shy popped off on the weekend. I go, do we have the shy? No. Yeah. Right, never mind that then. Right. Like, give me a break.
My favorite one is, Dornby is playing Nautilus mid. Surely we should play Nautilus mid too. I'm like, no, you should not. Yeah. You should not do that. You definitely shouldn't do that. Oh my god!
And it wouldn't cost them anything. Just hire a silver guy to review every draft, every plan. Be like, I don't know. I feel like this is broken. I wouldn't want to play against this. Oh.
Oh my god. Well, I don't know what they're doing. I think you lean into your advantages. I was super surprised to see them do that wacky stuff this week that completely went away from everything that they were actually good at. When it,
by the way,
legitimately looked like they were improving before.
Bearing in mind, they are still, just because of how deadlocked the middle of the table is,
I think
like
they're
a
fourth.
team that's
I think
they're third.
They're still in decent contention to get one of those buys.
They're third, but I think they will finish fourth. I think they will actually be the team to get a playoff bye.
With these strengths and these weaknesses, this is the team that's going to do terrible in the playoffs. Like, you can have a million games scored in the middle and late game in the playoffs.
Yet, by virtue of getting top 4, you'd lose to Cloud9, go into the lower bracket, and then I suspect the bottom 2 will be Immortals with Golden Guardians. They'll probably beat those two teams, advance into the next bracket. They could honestly make it to finals because of how easy the lower bracket will become, and then just get bodied by Cloud9.
So let's talk about the strength of the scene in general, because you said earlier that you think that the overall strength is horrible.
Yeah. So
I agree with you. I agree with you.
There's one game between second to last and third.
I was saying that the scene was horrible. I kid you not. Before the new teams had arrived to the LCS, before Immortals and Optic or Immortals and EG, I was talking to them. I was like, oh, what should we go heavy? Should we buy very expensive players and try to win? I was like, this is not the time to play. You cannot win. I can tell you the scene is not ripe for victory right now because the teams are just starting to learn that the results are based off of the whimsical moods of the players. And if they're not in the mindset at the end of the year, it's not going to change for spring. And it's not changing at all. So we're just seeing the results of last year starting to happen now in spring. And it maybe gets better if Cloud9 just inspires people in an international competition, but then we go back to the Corona problem that we might not even have that. what inspired the LEC with G2's success. But if Cloud9 can't get that done for us over here, then it might be another sad year.
Well, there's also the other issue, which is that even if MSI or Worlds does happen, how much have the Chinese teams been practicing? How much are the Korean teams going to be practicing? They're clearly not getting any stage time in, even though LPL is supposed to resume soon, so that's a positive at least. But there's going to be, between the two leagues, I think both of these leagues are going to miss half a season of stage time, which is incredibly valuable.
The strength of the region is Cloud9.
Yeah.
I really will not go and touch the other teams. It's Cloud9. That's what we've got going on for us.
So we talked last week about how it's very difficult to get a read on Cloud9 because every team just gives up every single objective to them without fighting them for it. But I still have a level of hope given some of the micro plays that I've seen. And I saw another reason to be hopeful when I was watching their game versus Dignitas last night. And let me explain. So last week we were talking about how it's the micro plays and the team fighting and the coordination where they're all in sync with each other, no matter what's happening. So what I found very interesting about C9 last night was that they got thrown a curveball. They got a weird composition that they were playing into with Huni top on the Lucian, and they had Froggen in mid on his signature Anivia. Now, this is going to change the way that you play the game a lot, but the read that they had on that was extremely good in two ways. One of which was Licorice was playing very far back against the Lucian, and intentionally losing CS just to not give that Lucian an advantage to where he could split push, and they knew the game well enough that they realized the Aatrox would be more meaningful later, and if they could force team fights around objectives, then they would be winning even with an Aatrox that was behind in gold. Also, the Aatrox caught up just from map pressure. They realized if he didn't die, then he was going to be okay through passive gold from the turrets that were being destroyed. Now, the other thing that was impressive was the way they played around Anivia wall in team fights. They were doing some really smart things. One of the most impressive play was Niski doing the buffer ult on Cassiopeia and starting the ult animation and flashing over the Anivia wall to finish it. These are not my point is these are not situations you find yourself in all the time as a professional player. And their ability to read those scenarios and react on a macro and micro level is very impressive. So I do have a level of confidence in them.
I think what's interesting about Cloud9 and this roster is that individually the players are likely to be the most driven out of anybody else. I mean, Blabber was just fed up with sharing time in the jungle, right? He just wanted a starting role to prove that he could do it. Sven is basically having his reputation on the line because he was considered a shitter after the TSM split. So you've got at least two players aching to prove themselves. Then you've got Licorice, who's finally realizing that he has an opportunity to kind of steal the spotlight as the top laner of North America on Cloud9. You've got Vulcan with the highest buyout of the LCS. And then Niski that's basically saying, hey, I was the reason why Svenskeren was so good. And you watch videos, what I think Azael did a really good Lane Kingdom showing how much he bodied Aka on Pantheon with just mechanics alone. And you've got a team that individually I think is way hungrier than anybody else, and with good reason.
Yeah.
PS, AK equals garbage.
Sure. I think that just from
He's garbage.
So what do you think? What do you think
the
about
French
this?
Rioma, as I call him.
Man, Rioma actually did much better this week, but
He's all right. Come on,
faint.
mate. Well, the standards gotten so low that people's expectations are like it's like poking a corpse. Like, do something. Like, oh, it's our move. Oh, he's alive.
So where do you think C9 is going to stack up internationally? Because I think I have some reasons to be somewhat confident in them. Like I've expressed, their adaptation in game is super strong, even to unusual situations. They do seem to have a super good read on their win conditions. My concern is that their comps are not super varied.
You didn't think I felt they're quite varied.
I mean, they do have some kind of hallmarks to their play. Like Blabber's going to play Elise, Lee Sin, or Gragas for the most part. We haven't seen a lot of slower games. They like to play for lane dominance and roaming mids, and then take first dragon and rotate top for Herald at 8 minutes. So they do have some trends.
Yeah. So internationally, I think that they will find themselves in trouble when they face teams that can lane even or better than them. Because that's where they're getting a lot of their leads, right? You can play the lane well and then transition into a phase that benefits you. But if you're up against a stronger laner than you, then you're actually going to be in a world of hurt. And it's hard to tell how laners from, say, LEC will fare off against laners in NA, because you never really know until they actually play. So I'm saving my skepticism to say that I think Cloud9 would probably get to a semifinals right now if you had an international tournament at least. But I
agree with that.
My recent history in seeing North America play internationally would say that would hold them back and would hold me back from saying that they're going to win, just because it's never happened. So I don't want to go down that path again and just get bit by it again.
I do think
also, like, people have to be fair. You can't only look at Cloud9 in isolation and then critique them and point out all flaws in the games they're winning, and then look at Europe and be like, they are unbeatable. Like, first of all, G2's lost loads of games.
Yes, they lost to Schalke. Like, come on.
Then you look, the other teams in the league can all lose to each other. Like, Misfits can beat half of them. Misfits doesn't have a fucking super sick lineup or anything. Origin has a couple of flaws in their team, even though they've overall got a pretty good style. Fnatic's strong in certain parts of the game. Other parts of the game, they just, some of their players look average. So, like, I think Cloud9 could definitely mix it up with all the teams in Europe right now.
I agree, and I think with Crumbz, the other thing when we talk about their lanes, historically Sven has stacked up extremely well internationally. So I'm less concerned about Sven. I'm curious about Licorice
and Niski.
Niski. I'm curious because Niski actually has shown some extremely good mechanics recently, and I remember watching him back when he was on Envy, and he is a significantly better player now. And he seems to have leveled up a lot this year in my mind. He's an unselfish player. I think they can play through the bot lane. I do agree that they will be more one-dimensional internationally, but their coordination right now, they all seem to react similarly depending on which cooldowns are up on the enemy team. They read the compositions really well. That's why I was so impressed by the Dignitas game, was because it was a weird comp that they played against beautifully.
Yeah, so Cloud9 is very obviously inside the game concerned with what can we do? What can they do? Let's find the best play to make. Like that's what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about anything else. And every other team is thinking about what's their identity. Like who's our shot caller? Like who's doing this and who's doing that? Like I feel like we should be drafting later. So they're never thinking about the game, and it shows because they're never on time to these fights. They're never actually coordinated when a team fight happens. Whereas you look at Cloud9, you're like, oh, okay, they actually wanted to combo these abilities together and make something flashy out of it. So Cloud9 is the only team that is just every fight, all right, check the cooldowns. What can we do? And
it's very methodical. It's clean. It's really clean. So again, better opponents though. It's easy to be clean against bad teams.
I think they're going to have problems as well, like you were saying, in terms of the strength of the laners. Because even though on paper it actually should have been mid lane that was the strongest this year in NA because of all the imports, but half of them have been rubbish. So functionally, it's probably top lane that is the best in NA. Actually.
No, it's mid. It's mid for sure.
I don't know about that. There's a lot of good players in top lane in LCS compared to their teams. But the problem is, like, you go over to Europe, there's some boys there that do work, mate. Some really good
okay,
there.
But this is
Alfari, Wonder, come on, mate. They destroy LCS.
Yeah, the top laners in EU, I'd say, are stronger, but I think that the mid laners in NA have been pretty good. And I think Niski is obviously leading the charge, but what makes me confident in the mid laners now is that PoE has just come out as a really strong player.
You're crowding Pobelter already. Oh, PoE.
PoE.
When you said PoE, I was like, this is outrageous. He's not the prince that was promised, you know. You played one game. Listen, I like that he beat TSM Cloud9, but let's not go crazy.
Yeah, no, like PoE has been sick. He's actually,
he has been very good.
Most of the stats, and he's
turned his career around again.
Way different things now. Like he plays Kiana, he plays Rumble. Like he's shown to be a crazy versatile player that's actually never losing you the game, but almost always the reason why you're winning it. And that's not something we saw before. And maybe CLG was holding him back when he was playing last year.
Well, I think we should talk. We haven't talked a lot about.
We still don't have better laners. Like we don't have better players. regions. I will say that. I'm just trying to hold on to what is good for us here.
How good is FlyQuest?
Better
you can't hit on him at this point. Exactly.
Better than all the other teams.
Listen, as much as you want to talk any trash you want on FlyQuest, you have to make the statement Crumbz just said. They're still better than everyone who is in Cloud9. Like, I look at them and I don't think this is why I think LA is weak. If they're the second best team, which they are now, you can't take it away from them, then it's a pretty weak region. Because that team is one where if they're like your fourth best team, you've probably got a pretty strong region, actually. But if they're your second best team, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
I mean, I think FlyQuest is almost they're as good as Ignar has room to play the game. If Ignar can engage or do whatever he wants on the
if he has agency, basically,
they will probably have a really good game. And so that's what's really getting this team online, because what happens with all these rosters is, League is an information-based game, so you have all these players that are all about, I got all this information. I can give you 50 things that you got to be looking at right now, but you have no one that's willing to take that into an action. And Ignar is that guy to inspire or to ignite something in FlyQuest, which is why they look so different than last season, where they were just doing nothing all game. So the team is, I think, a testament to how good Ignar has been as a support right now. He might be, it's hard to say because of obviously Cloud9, everybody could be an MVP right now, but he's definitely making the rounds for like a best support in NA right now.
I think it's also, we talked about this at the beginning of the season, is that this is a uniquely good meta for Ignar. I mean, this is a player that was always historically known for his Alistar play, for his Blitzcrank play. Hook and engage champs are his bread and butter. And so it was always going to be, this is a great meta for a playmaking support like Ignar to really pop off. So that was an encouraging sign. Also, Santorin. I feel like we don't talk about Santorin enough because he's been historically a very average player, but he is quite good right now. I mean, statistically, he's up there at the top with most of the other junglers. He looks like one of the best junglers in the LCS, if not second best, I think, behind Blabber.
Yeah, and I think the balanced team has been shifting the game to be more like solo queue, in that you're getting rewarded for a lot of aggression and rewarded for the kinds of plays that make sense in solo queue, whether it's a aggressive level 2 gank or a kind of cheesy engages. Santorin has always been an amazing solo queue player. And same thing with Blabber. And I think it's now starting to show that the solo queue skills are transitioning better over into professional, which is, you see players like Tactical also have pretty good success. Him and Corey JJ duo all the time in their top 5, I think, for the past few weeks in a solo queue. Same thing with a player like Ruin on CLG, who's actually plays solo queue at a crazy high level all the time, which is where he's getting so much praise, and he can have a pop-off rumble game if he's given any room to breathe, if somebody else on CLG starts pressuring the map. So I think that approach to solo queue transitioning to competitive is helping FlyQuest and players like Santorin just be a lot stronger than they were before.
I mean, I think it makes sense to me, and this is kind of, I think, Riot's end game of trying to match solo queue as closely as possible to the professional scene. This has been a multi-year mission of theirs, and it does seem that it's becoming more successful. In fact, I played a little bit of solo queue, and it does seem like it's a very, very similar experience. In fact, I would say it's probably the most similar experience of any ranked play to an esport that exists right now.
Yeah, in solo queue, you have your team constantly thinking about Dragon Souls. Sometimes they want to make a Herald swap. Like they keep in mind the objectives. They understand what cheese can look like, and so the game is starting to creep up to that. And it's not there yet, but we are having some solo queue players actually start getting picked up now without having to go through the old trials of just having to befriend a pro player before you can just go off of your record with guys like Johnson that had 4 accounts and are actually pretty consistent in the LCS.
It's also the fact that there was such a huge burden of knowledge for up-and-coming pro players in order to learn the rules of the professional game, because they were so different when you had lane swaps or when there were certain warding patterns, and now it's so much more about laning, and I feel like the macro game has been simplified in many ways. So
big time. I mean, the game practically tells you what the Because before you had a lot of lull states where there's no objective, so that's where you really like became a good macro team or not. What do you do where there's nothing to fight for? Are you going to stall out and just do nothing, or can you find a way to create an advantage for yourself? And now you don't even have to think about that. It's like, oh, there's always a dragon, there's always a new buff, there's always a herald. There's so much to do that it makes it easier for a solo queue player to really figure out that the game can be played around objectives up until a win.
It definitely does. I think we need to do the Cloud9 roundup now and take a momentary hiatus for bathroom and drinks. We'll be back in just a few minutes, guys, and we'll continue with Crumbz here.
Howdy there, buckaroos and buckarettes. Welcome to another edition of the Cloud9 Roundup. First up this week, we've got some news from Rocket League. Cloud9, now they fell 0-3 to absolute leverage in the round of 8 of the, and this is a mouthful, Team Beyond Astronauts Rocket Star Circuit Qualifier number 5. Now what does that mean? That means that they have been eliminated. Best of luck in the next one, Cloud9. And also, if we look at that RLCS, the premier Rocket League tournament, it's been another tough week for Cloud9 as they fall 1-3 to G2 Esports. They're going to have a mighty big turnaround this season if they want to play it out and make it into the top teams in the RLCS. Now, CSGO don't have much better news. They lost to Ninjas in Pajamas, and that ended their participation at IEM Katowice this year. Congratulations to Navi, though, who came out with a big win in spectacular style in Poland. Now in Overwatch League, we do have some good news. Those rookie players over on the London Spitfire, well, they had a tough week against the Florida Mayhem and the Houston Outlaws, but they won both of their matches, and they did it 3-2 in nail-biting fashion. Now, we hope those London Spitfire boys maybe give our fans a few less heart attacks next time. Maybe just go ahead and close out a series 3-0, but a win's a win all the same. Cloud9 will no longer have Banana on their streaming roster. We wish her the best of luck in the future, but we do have 2 streamers and content creators celebrating their 1-year anniversary as proud Cloud9 members. That is, of course, C9's M's over on the Call of Duty side, and PvPX, who plays a little bit of Overwatch, plays a little bit of Apex Legends. Might know him from his excellent YouTube channel. Go check out M's and PvPX, who continue to stream for Cloud9. Let's talk about a little League of Legends, which is probably why you're here for the 9 Summoning Insight in the first place. As you well know, Cloud9 Academy, now they took down Golden Guardians Academy on Friday, but we still have a matchup against Dignitas Academy. That will have finished by the time we air this show, so look at my hand for their record. I hope they beat Dignitas Academy. I bet they will. In the LCS, Cloud9 had a less convincing win than usual going up against FlyQuest on Saturday, but they got the win, and that means they are locked into the Spring Split playoffs. They are heading in as the big favorite, as everyone knows, in the LCS here in North America. Now, do they get that 12-0 win streak? We'll be finding out tonight my time. And again, over my hand, hopefully there's a 12-0 there. If not, good game to Dignitas, and congratulations on being the first team to beat Cloud9. I don't think you did it, though. I think you've had a rough week already. Cloud9's here to dominate you yet again. Well, thank you very much for watching another edition here of the Cloud9 Roundup, your source for all of the Cloud9 news across every team, every influencer, every streamer, every week. We'll see you again next week. Thank you very much.
Just get ready, because I know the way these people's brains work.
It
They're
says
already
you're muted.
I made a mistake. It's time for
do it again.
It's time for us to talk about the teams that you want us to talk about. Hashtag Puma. And in chat, please give us the name of a team that you want us to talk about. And
with the hashtag Puma.
The
Don't
hashtag
just hear.
Puma.
All you guys hear is team you want to talk about. You chat C9, can I talk C9? It's like hashtag Puma, otherwise it doesn't count. And also, you have to be over 18 and live in America.
Yeah, in order to win.
I like the hashtag Puma shoes.
You don't just type stuff in. Like, we're not some totalitarian government or something. You can type anything you want in, but you just won't win the Puma gift card.
Isn't that a totalitarian government? Do what you want if you just don't participate.
Guys, we already talked about
Left
TSM.
behind.
We're not going to talk about TSM again. I'm bored of talking about TSM.
Listen,
Team Liquid. All right, here we go.
Me
Team
talking
Liquid.
about totalitarian government is the last evil empire we're going to talk about, not TSM. So Team Liquid, there we go.
Team Liquid.
Okay.
I do think we do have to talk about Team Liquid this week. We're talking about LCS because Crumbz is here, guys. We're probably not going to get into LEC or LCK too much this episode.
Yeah.
Next week, I promise you, we will have a spectacular LEC episode for you guys.
If you want to talk about LCS Academy, I can also get into that. But
Nobody wants to talk about LCS Academy. Nobody.
All right, Team Liquid. Here we go. What
Yeah.
what do you guys want from TL here in this season? They looked a lot better this week. Broxa was player of the week. It is funny to me that they have Broxa on Sejuani duty after intentionally giving up Xmithy. But he has played significantly better with this roster. Tactical obviously had a very good debut this week with the team, played well with the rest of his teammates. Impact looked super solid. Where are we seeing this Team Liquid team in a few weeks? Because I think they're going to be good by the time we get to playoffs.
I think Team Liquid will lose to Cloud9 in the finals.
I mean, interestingly,
I think this team is definitely going to end up in second. Like, maybe they don't make it into the second regular season, but when it comes to playoffs, Team Liquid always delivers. I mean, you just cannot.
They've got so much
ignore
time as
the
well. Look,
time that they have played.
they've got 3 whole weeks extra, and then you start with the playoffs as long as you have reasonable seeds.
and also they could spoil the undefeated season for Cloud9.
Yeah.
That's the last game on Sunday of week 9 is C9 versus TL, the last game for both of these teams. So that's going to be actually pretty fire, I think, because that's what we want to see is the longest amount of time for Team Liquid to get back into form before they have to play C9.
Yeah, it's very good timing on that matchup. And honestly, I am very pleasantly surprised with Broxa. He is really good.
I agree.
Like, he's actually really freaking good and has the right attitude that I think Team Liquid needs for their current situation. I think it might have actually been worse had he come into the season and had to meld into getting sick double if and a Team Liquid that wasn't really giving it their all as they had said. Now you're in a team that is trying to kick it into high gear because they realize there's a good chance they could have even missed playoffs. What are you gonna whisper there? That's your voice. That's your voice hand.
I do sometimes do that. It's true, but I didn't have anything prepared for that.
It's your voice sound. It's true. It is his voice sound. So, yeah, I think Broxa, now that we've actually seen him in the lineup, looks like a pretty significant upgrade. I don't really think that they need double lift, at least not in his current sick and or unmotivated state, with Tactical being perfectly fine as a substitute. Yeah, I think that this is looking increasingly like a team that's worth paying attention to. The games that they played this last week, I think, were very dominant when we saw them play versus TSM and, of course, 100 Thieves.
Jensen has also been quietly really good in the mid lane, even though everything in the previous week
he didn't
was
die this
kind
week.
of garbage. Yeah, he actually leads the league, I think, in the lowest death. I'm going to check again, but I don't think KDA is a good stat. I just don't think it offers anything. But when you actually look at kills / deaths and assists, that tells you a better story of what the player has been doing. And Jensen has one of the best for a mid lane right now. Let me just find it real quick. Yeah, so Jensen has 11 deaths, which
Probably
is the lowest in the league.
Really?
And
even lower than Sven?
Yeah. It's for mid laners.
For mid laners, yeah.
And Pobelter has 4 games played and is already at 13 deaths. So like Jensen has been really, he's like, if you just read his entire KDA, it was 31, 11, and 45, which is really impressive. And he's been playing side lanes really well, which is odd because I felt like he was a player that still felt a little bit out of sync with the rest of Team Liquid last year. And then when everything started falling apart, he ends up being the kind of shining light that won them a few games. Because if it wasn't for him on Rise a few times, this team would definitely be in serious risk of missing playoffs.
I think this is where the turnaround starts, though. They've actually had the time to gel. They played at least a decent team in TSM this week, but they completely bodied them. Now, I do think TSM shot themselves in the foot in the drafting phase, so I'm not super impressed by Team Liquid, but I do think they played well around the composition that TSM had drafted, and I think they got the good read on it.
They're a team that rises to the skill of their opponent a lot of the time, and the skill of their opponents has not been very high, so they have not risen a lot. So I feel confident in them just from the sheer amount of money behind the roster. I mean, the freaking axiomatic CEO is in every Team Liquid game, right? It's not Steve in every Team Liquid game. It's freaking Peter Goober in the game. So
also, you have to remember,
watching all of your games, I'm pretty sure they're trying to make sure that you make it to playoffs and that you do not fail.
Yeah. Also, you have to remember, because the middle of the table is so even in terms of the score, they're already tied for third now. That's before they've even had the big run. So it would be very different if there was 3 teams at the top of the league and they're all in double figures. It's going to be so hard. You can still get it's not impossible if you go crazy to get the second seed even for the playoffs. It's huge.
That'd be very nice to get second seed because you avoid Cloud9.
It's what sort of...
So I'll tell you the big
They'll
galaxy
never expect
brain.
it.
So
until the final, at least.
Yeah, until the final. I mean, you would just want to avoid them until as long as possible, because clearly they have the room to not show anything now, so they're going to come into playoffs even more prepared. But yeah, I like Team Liquid. Do we do more than one team on the hashtag Puma, or do you want to go?
Was there any other good one they mentioned?
We can talk about. I think we can talk about Immortals a little bit.
Oh no!
Oh no! Oh no!
What a garbage team! What an unbelievably garbage team.
I mean, CLG almost went 2-0 this week as a result of Immortals.
I don't think Immortals would even win some of those national leagues in Europe. This team's actually really flawed in its conception. It just doesn't make sense, the players that they have together.
Well, what's interesting is that we had Apollo actually starting this week. Alltech was kind of getting owned in the laning phase, and they decided that they were going to make a stretch, a switch.
I spoke to him as to why that happened, by the way. He told me exactly.
Apollo and Hakuho are back together, the old MV AD bottom duo. So what is the reason?
So they went 0-2 in Academy that same week as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the coaches are just we don't know what's going on. Let's just try something. That was it. They were not winning. He wasn't doing well in the Academy. They were losing.
The old XDG player.
Yeah.
They were don't know what's going on. Let's just try something.
Well, they were losing on all fronts. They're just you know what? Screw it. Get these guys back together.
Now, they barely beat CLG, and they did lose to Golden Guardians. And not only did they lose to Golden Guardians, they almost got perfect gamed. They got 1 tower. That was it. And they got a couple of dragons. But it was super close to not even taking any objectives at all. They got no kills in the game whatsoever.
Yeah. So to me, Immortals is imagine if you took the most quiet bass player from a band and made an entire band around the guy, but didn't even market the band. So you're just oh, it's a bass player. And you're oh, I guess it's only a bass CD. It's no, there's actually an entire
this
cast
is
around
if you tried to make exactly
right. And it's Smithy. He was the most reserved guy. I'm yeah, I'm supposed to carry this team all by myself.
He tried to make a massive blockbuster, selling out stadiums tour with a band built around the bassist from U2, who no one even knows who that guy is. People know the other members of the band. They don't know who that guy is. You just got blonde hair, as far as I remember. And you're oh, this will sell out for sure. It's no, nobody wants to see that. No one even knows what he actually did in the band.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Right? No one even knows. At first, they're was Smithy everything of Team Liquid? Whoa, wait a minute.
All right, I think that's unfair to Smithy. If you say he's the no-name bassist, he's more like Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know who he is, and you understand that he's a good bassist, but you're not going to watch a tour with Flea and some randoms.
Well, that's why I like the YouTube bassist. I think that's the guy with the do rag, right? Yeah. So I kind of knew who it was.
No, you're thinking of the Edge. I think.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
The YouTube one. Yeah. No, the guitarist is actually good in that band.
Yeah, I think it's more like Flea and randoms rather than rather than somebody who you completely don't know. But I do like the analogy. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this. Like Aka, we've had some interesting import experiments this split, some of which were questionable, like Aka and Ryoma, as to whether they would work out. Some of them are surprising, like Crown, that didn't work out. But I'm not sure if these are the import mid laners that you need in order to be successful beyond potentially being a mid-table team like 100 Thieves or Immortals.
I mean,
when I watch Aka play, I just think like, did DeMonte fuck your dog? What does this guy have to do to get a break?
Like,
I do think from talking to people, the logic that I have heard around DeMonte and Pobelter is that you know what the ceiling is on those guys.
So I also do know that those players had offers, but they did not get the money that they wanted. It wasn't that nobody looked at them. It was that they did, but they're like, I want more money.
Personally, I don't think you could probably have that good of a read on DeMonte given the short period of his professional career. That's my take is like DeMonte's ceiling we probably haven't seen yet. But I think people were more willing to take a flyer on some of these imports and like hope they were good, but balance must be restored. That's
the problem. There was never any reason to take it. There was no upside to the gamble of Ika. Like even people who watched the National League scene said that he wasn't the best player in the LDLC team. Like the rest of them propped him up. He was just an okay player, you know. Like it's not even like he had legit hype because obviously you see in LEC now there's some straight fire rookies who came from the National League scene who were tearing it up like the Mad Lions guys. But the problem is that's never who Ika was. So that angle is where the fallacious element comes in. Like, I agree. If it was a real talent who you wanted to try out, fair enough. Like, I don't actually totally blame Papa Smithy for the Ryoma one. That one was one way it was a flyer. Like, maybe that could have worked out. It's not impossible. There could be some super duper player in Oceanic region that we just don't know. But the Ika one is whack. Like, and the fact that they continue with it now, it's like no amount of com-by-R sessions around the campfire really believing in your teammates is going to make this team good because it's bad at the video game League of Legends. And what's that? What's the only metric we're using in these matches? How good you are at League of Legends. Shit! If it was only about being good teammates, we could do this. Turns out it's about the video game.
Well, why? It's even more than that because like you're importing somebody based off the assumption that you have the skill to turn anybody into talent, that you can get gold out of someone. You didn't even know how to get gold out of the people you already have. Like, how the fuck can you just bring somebody in and think, yeah, we know how to get the best out of this talent? Like, you haven't gotten the best out of anybody on this team. In fact, I think that you can look at every single, well, not every single import, most imports that have come to NA either stay even or worse. No one has gotten better.
I think with Ryoma, there was some promise to his mechanical abilities, but the issue is that he just has no game sense on a professional level. And we're coming off a week, by the way, where Ryoma probably had his best game when he played against Evil Geniuses. So maybe the Ryoma project is coming together. But they also got absolutely dumpstered by TL. But I expect that to happen. I think TL is actually going to be a pretty good game from this point forward, or pretty good team, rather, from this point forward. I think with Ryoma, what is the upside here for this guy? Like, he gets some game sense and he's an adequate mid laner. Is that worth an import slot when you have DeMonte or Pobelter around? CLG has already said no, that they want Pobelter, and they've already started to put wins on the board.
I think the import slot is just wasted in many situations. It's just such a hassle to deal with in the first place when you have to go with a visa, so your initial practice is always delayed. The cultural appropriation is just always playing into it. Why deal with any of that? And Cloud9 figured it out a long time ago. Like, why? And for some reason, people keep ignoring that the team that's doing it the best is getting the better results. Like, you know what? They're getting results, but I think there's a better way. It's like,
Crumbz meant cultural acclimatization there, not appropriation.
What's the difference?
It's like they come in just wearing a big Stetson cowboy hat, like, yeehaw! I'm here in America now, Crumbz. Get me a hamburger.
Who would possibly do that on this show? I would never do that on this show.
There's no cultural appropriation.
That's not what
I can't culturally appropriate cowboys because I'm from Colorado, though, and grew up with cowboys. So
okay, yeah.
that is my culture.
Not the right word.
The only thing is, though, I do think 100 Thieves is a team that deserves scrutiny, because if they had, it feels like almost any other mid lane, even if it was the aforementioned Paul Belter, would be an obvious example, Demonte, this team could actually be good. This roster is like some good players. You just want to, it's a waste at the moment. You can't do anything with this team now.
I think it's tragic because Someday is like having an amazing season.
He's been great the whole time.
Okay, here's a question for you, Crumbz. Is Someday the best top laner in the LCS right now?
No, Licorice is.
Really?
Yeah. Someday still has some games where he's kind of struggling, but I think that the issue is that the synergy between Meteos and Ryoma is so bad that it bleeds into everything else. And so if Meteos has any instance of trying to help Someday, he can't. So then Someday gets screwed over. And it's just it's so hard to tell. So then if Someday gets screwed over, I can't say that, if he were hypothetically having his team assist him to the level that Licorice gets assistance, then maybe he could match and then he would be better. It's such a hypothetical that I'm not going to go down that path. I'm just going to stick to right now. He's not given the deliverance that other players are, but when he has been given those opportunities, he will hard carry. He's the hardest carry top laner. I definitely will say that because no one else has bodied somebody like he did with the Aatrox against Impact or the Lucian against Hanser.
I think that Someday is better. I think he has fewer resources to work with, and that he's doing the best he can, and that when they win, he is absolutely just dragging the team over the finish line. We saw that last week in their Golden Guardians game when he just actually understood how to apply sidewave pressure with Lucian. He was taking objectives, he was getting his team gold, he was getting the map pressure. I think Someday is having a really good season. And I understand from talking to Papa Smithy that he's a huge part of their in-game comms as well, and that he is one of the primary voices in-game in terms of leadership. So I think he's incredibly valuable at this point in time. So I don't know. Yeah. I feel really good about Someday, not just classic MonteCristo KT bias. He's an 8-year veteran, which is pretty crazy. He's been playing professionally since he was 15. And he's looking super good. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see a lot of him last year because of the way that the import slots on 100 Thieves worked out. And he had to go down to Academy.
Him. I saw him. I casted every game of Someday in Academy. And he was... every carry game he had in LCS, that was every game he has in Academy. That was it. It was every single time, there goes Someday carrying.
There goes my hero. Anyway, I don't know. What do you think about Someday right now, Thorin?
I think he's definitely one of the best players in LCS at the moment. That's why I say this team, like the roster on paper, this is how you can tell that a team actually didn't completely mess it up in the offseason. Is normally when a team has a record like they do, a losing record, you even look at the names. Like CLG is a great example. Their roster looked straight fire before the split began. It looks terrible now because you've seen those players play the game, and now all the names don't equal as much value in your brain anymore. Like you look at CLG now and you're like, it's an all right roster, I guess. That roster looked guaranteed to be top 3 when you saw it before the split. The difference is with 100 Thieves, obviously everyone mocks Ryoma and laughs at him because he's not good enough. But aside from that, most parts of the roster are good. Like they're at least redeemable. Like you can still turn this whole team around, I feel like. Sadly, obviously the pole belter angle's gone already. Like they can't do that. But I feel like that would have been the move to make if you could.
I saw a Meteos piece where he was talking about the issues on 100 Thieves, and they're having a hard time just getting everybody to agree to the same play. So the example is just resetting, right? You reset for the dragon. You have 4 people resetting, 1 doesn't. Everybody wastes their time at the dragon because one guy didn't make it, so they have to pull out of the play, and everything looks terrible because now you've wasted 2 minutes of time. Enemy thinks you're running it down if you're playing like that. That's what he credits to be the issue with 100 Thieves, and it's pretty clear. I mean, the team is just not on the same page when it comes to these objectives, which is what the game is all about now. So I think that the Thieves just lean further into Someday as the solo carry, which makes him look even greater because he can, right? There's no one else that's actually having a ceiling as high as he does. So it's a bit of a fallback for them to say, if we can just get Someday on the carry, we can bypass our lack of coordination and just have him take us over the finish line.
I think with 100 Thieves too, what will be interesting is this next week. And I think this week is like the make or break week for the spring split for 100 Thieves because, okay, they lose to a surging TL. We don't expect this team to be top, but I do agree that their roster on paper is generally pretty good. And they absolutely crushed Evil Geniuses. This next week is Dignitas versus and Immortals. These are two mid-table teams, and if 100 Thieves wants to make a legit playoff push and show us that, oh, Ryoma has improved in his pressure play and his play around vision, and that he can be a professional player at least a mediocre level, this is going to be the time to do it, right? He's got a game against Aka, who's going to be better. Like, these are games that I think 100 Thieves is perfectly capable of winning, given Dignitas' sort of slide in the last few weeks, starting off strong and then really not looking great.
You have to remember, 3 of Dignitas' wins came really early in the split, so they've actually been pretty terrible for most of the split.
I feel better about the Thieves in this matchup after that win to EG. I did not think that they were actually going to take down EG because they were looking so limp throughout the entire
the EG game. They played well.
Yeah, and then out of nowhere, I'm like, wow, okay, this is what I was hoping you guys would do from day one. And that's not what I'm seeing out of Dignitas out of Immortals. I'm not seeing these teams come out with fire in their games. I'm looking at Dignitas going back to their old comfort picks against Cloud9, which I can kind of respect the choice, but come on, man. You didn't actually think Lucian and Nivea was going to take down Cloud9. You didn't actually write that down as your.
Oh, come on! I think they had to do that. I think they had to do that. I think they were going to lose if they played it straight up. So you might as well do something weird and try and play towards like some specialty champs. Huni known for his Lucian, Froggen known for the Anivia, and see if you can just bamboozle them. I actually like what Dignitas did there, but
I respect that. But like, deep down, like you're like, what's the win rate? What are the win rates we have on these champions, by the way? Because they're abysmal. First of all, right now, I think I know for a fact that Froggen is 6-12 in the LCS with Anivia. And when's the last time Huni won with Lucian?
He's played it already this season. I don't remember if he won or not.
I gotta check out the Lucian, but I know he hasn't won that much with the Lucian as an all.
Historically, yeah, obviously not.
Yeah, all time. Like, yeah, exactly. Same thing with Froggen. It's like an all time thing, just because the champions are so hard to fit into the current meta. Because the problem happened with the Dignitas, where you're not used to playing with Anivia, where you just don't play around mid until level 6. Guess what? I just want to go mid. I just don't do it. You go mid, and then oh crap, now we're behind the whole game.
Well, I just think this is a really interesting week for 100 Thieves because I want to know if that level against EG is going to be their level against mid-table teams. They're all knotted up. There's 4 teams at 5 and 7 right now. There's a real battle for who is the third best team in this league, whether it's TSM or 100 Thieves or...
Here's the thing. Earlier on, Crumbz said something, which means by process of elimination, he actually thinks Golden Guardians is a playoff team.
I did say that.
So you've got to give us the reason for that.
I mean, they played a really clean game against Immortals this week.
So that team is garbage. Right? Come on, Crumbz.
So, all right,
come on.
Everyone's garbage.
Yeah, so let's order the standings, right? CLG last, we can agree to that.
Yes, of course.
Cloud9 at first, and then we have to work from that.
TL is second right now.
From the soup, yeah, I think you can definitely say TL, FlyQuest as the top 3. Like, I'm not gonna say we're just gonna leave FlyQuest a second because they're there. I think Team Liquid definitely slots into third. I think fourth out of that super of players or teams, TSM looks like the 4th best to me. So I'm putting TSM on 4th, which leaves 9th, 8th, 7th, and 6th with all the other teams. And so I'm just sorting like which one of these looks worse or which one seems to be on the decline. And so Dignitas seems to be like one of those teams that is starting to struggle more because of their early wins. And then you have somebody like Golden Guardians who has Closer as their saving grace. But my skepticism about them is that it feels like this last week, being on Golden Guardians might have gotten to him. He might have started to get tilted.
That is a pretty good factor.
It might have actually. Like, I was holding it for him. I was like, man, I can't believe you're still hanging in here. You're freaking giving it your all. You're invading time and time again. That's a good jungler. And then like, oh boy, okay, if you're having a bad game, I totally understand why. Right? You woke up one day, I was like, shh, okay.
I get it. Obviously, eventually it does set in that you are just on Golden Guardians and all your efforts are in vain and you are in some Sisyphean nightmare scenario where all you can do is stoically show the strength and fortitude you have as a man. That's it.
Like
you can't win games.
It's like
you have to just show your character.
Exactly. You wake up like, oh my God, I was on Golden Guardians and now I have to jungle and I have to do all these things, but
everything's a conspiracy against you.
What is this world? What is this world, by the way, where Golden Guardians... I feel bad for Closer because I actually think he's legit good.
Yes, he is.
But why would you pick FBI and Closer as your import slots on an NA team? What is this madness of this roster building? And then you round it out with Keith swapping to support Golden Glue and Haunser. Who designed this roster?
So I can share some insight, and I know that Golden Guardians did not handle negotiations in the offseason well and failed to secure the players that they wanted. And you can apply that to most teams, saying that you actually just were bad at negotiating and you actually lost most of your players. So a lot of these rosters that just look whack are the result of people thinking that they can strong arm somebody or that they are the hottest team and players should be just happy that they're being approached. And so you lose all these players and you end up with rosters that are just make no sense in any circumstance, but they have to play it off as like, this was our main idea. We are going to support our players and stand by them. Where some guys in the back, like, when the fuck can we get rid of them? Like, we just need to make a round for the guy we wanted again.
It's also, to explain, if you guys didn't see, there is a very good ESPN article that was written about the Vulcan. I'm sure most people read it, about Vulcan trade and how it's set up sort of a series of dominoes. To explain to people who don't know how LCS offseason works, it's a very weird thing, because what ends up happening is that there are a few key pieces that have to move. And so if a player who is an NA resident, who is considered at least like a decent NA resident player that can be a starter on a team or be a consistent starter, then those players have to move first, because no one knows who they're going to use their import slots for. So there's this weird domino effect that happens every offseason in the LCS, where you have to decide where the residents are going. And so unless those key pieces start to fall, and this offseason it was Vulcan and Svenskeren, obviously coming off the MVP, like, where was Svenskeren going to go? How are you going to use the import slots around these players? And that's what really matters. So it ends up, what ends up happening every year is there's kind of a log jam where it's like, if this player goes here, then all the dominoes fall this way. Or if this player goes to this other team, then all the dominoes fall a different way. And so if you aren't dictating where the first domino falls, which is what Cloud9 was doing, it appears, this offseason with the whole Vulcan and Svenskeren trades, then you just get owned.
Yeah, and
you just get owned.
A lot of the teams, they'll plan for top 3 choices, and then all 3 choices are lost. You're like, well, who do we look at now? And so they start scrambling, and then they look at their 4th option. That guy just got an offer right away because the dominoes are falling so fast, and so you're really moving quickly. And I think it was EG that had come out where they're like, well, we wanted Chovy first, right? I think that was their first, and that wasn't even, I'm pretty sure they wanted Crown as well. So like, the Crown domino moves to CLG. So it's like, well, crap, we got to go for this guy. Then this guy doesn't move. And so now the import slot is just in a continuous up in the air where you don't even know if you're going to have a Korean player for Bang, which might have been the initial conversation with 100 Thieves as to why he would join the team. And then it just really messes everything up.
Yeah.
It's fun, though.
It is fun, but it's unlike any other... It's unlike any other sort of sport or esport I've seen. I was actually having a conversation about this last night with some people, and somebody made the comparison of it being similar to Tom Brady, the Tom Brady situation in the NFL right now, which is like, where is Tom Brady going? Which is actually causing like a log jam of quarterback trades, because you need Tom Brady to go somewhere before you can actually commit to a series of other quarterbacks. So it's a very weird situation that I think there is an analog in the NFL, but it's much rarer in the NFL. This happens every single year in the LCS. So anytime you see weird rosters as a result of the LCS offseason, just remember that there's often some very strange shenanigans going on in the background that cause the team to actually just get completely owned.
Yeah, that's why like the viewers need to train their skepticism and read past the PR bullshit that a lot of the teams continue to put out. Like, we're stand behind these play. Like, it's always crap. It's
like I always
bullshit.
say, if you ever hear someone say, we're trying to develop talent, that means save money on salaries.
Yeah,
it does.
That's all it
does.
Yeah, right. Our budget was low because we spent it all on Xmithy. So
Exactly.
we're going to look for all the players that can cost a ton less.
Yeah. I do think that there is some real talent development going on. I think one of the things that 100 Thieves is doing with their, I don't know what it's called, their high school players.
100X, I think, is the
Of course, because that's a thing.
Yeah.
But I do think that is valuable. They're trying to be able to train these players from 15, 16-year-old and see if that is going to be effective, which not many people have done before. So
What's
I do respect
next?
that.
Like the fastest sperm that swims gets identified by Papa Smithy and tagged to be the mid laner in 25 years. So
Ooh, it's that good roaming. Good roaming.
he's going too far now. He's
We
popping
really
off.
got
He's
to that
going in.
objective
He's going
quickly,
in.
you know?
I mean, it kind of is going that way. When you look at how Asia does it, and when you have like the TSM high school leagues, because someone's just gonna come and one up it. You got that 7-year-old winning a Pokemon tournament. They're just gonna be like, well, how young can talent start to show?
I that's how it works in other sports, right? We make fun of it,
Yeah.
but a lot of these prospects are identified by the NBA when they're like 12.
If you
And-
can have a child prodigy at sports or music, why couldn't you have one in the game?
Yeah, we already have had that. It's just people didn't know because nobody was looking for them at the time, and now we're starting to see the emergence of this. So I don't think it's ridiculous, and in fact, I think it's very valuable because the earlier you can start coaching players, the more they're used to being coached. Which I think we can agree, Crumbz, is one of the main problems with NA players is that they arrive at 18 having never played a sport and having never been coached, and they reject infrastructure and coaches in particular.
And not only having never been coached, but having never been in a situation where you have to contribute to a high-stress team environment where time is of the essence and you can't just fly around just go around the issue without directly addressing the problem and telling someone, hey, you're bad, you need to do this. And so if you haven't actually gotten to the point in your life where you can be okay with saying and receiving that, then you're also being a detriment to your team, which just spirals out of control. Because now go back to taking somebody at they're 10 years old, you start helping them become a better player, and they start just being a prodigy right away. Unless they're planning on staying on that team forever, almost like Faker now, this is a person that's going to be really difficult to integrate into society afterwards, because that is someone that has stared at League of Legends champions pretty much their whole life and will have no way of handling social interactions that are just as
Which
important
brings
in a
us
team
back
game.
to the beginning of the episode, because then what happens is they're playing great in League of Legends, they're dedicated, they're grinding, all that matters in life is their ladder points, they're becoming a good player, and then what happens? They're walking down the street one day, lovely sunny day, they hop into the diner maybe to get a malted drink that's so popular with the kids nowadays, Monty. They chuck a couple of dimes across that diner, he slides them a big milkshake, they drink it. Oh, they see someone in a pretty dress, nice little lace outfit. Oh, who are you? Are you one of those LCS players? And next thing you know, it's all over again. The cycle of life is being completed.
That's right. Thorin's 50s diner experience. This is when we have the studio, Thorin. We could actually just make skits like this. And
We
it'll be
will,
great.
yeah. Instead
we
of me
will.
just saying, imagine this, we'll just do it. Basically.
That's a good skit. That's a good
That is
skit.
a good skit.
Right, just follow the life too. If you just get a bunch of child actors to represent the lifespan of this player, and then as he grows up,
Yeah, exactly.
see and experience his Oh, his journey. Then
Plus, obviously,
it's
you have
trash.
characters from LCS, like Bad Boy Jack comes in his leather jacket, hits the jukebox, it starts playing We Are the Champions. He just starts high-fiving Reggie.
Dude, as I get older and hear this shit and see more of it, I start to see why Shakespearean comedies are always so tragic. I'm like, yeah, that shit is funny.
It is.
Exactly.
From the outside, it's the Schadenfreude. It's the Schadenfreude that gets to you. Schadenfreude is one of my favorite things in the universe. So,
What is that? What does that stand? What does it mean?
it's a German word that was co-opted into English that means that you take delight in other people's misery.
Basically, this show regarding TSM every international tournament. Basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I've always said, that video where Loco Doco and Reggie before season 5 Worlds are like all excited when it's the group draw, and then they don't realize there was that rule where even if you get drawn into a group,
Yes.
so they think they're in the easy group, and it turns out they're in the group of death, which like they get completely banged
beautiful.
out. That is one of the best videos ever because they start like jumping around when they think they've made it, and then Loco has to like explain it to Reggie, and Reggie's just literally just looking like a kid who just doesn't know anything about maths. He's being taught like an algebra.
That's what I love about the video. It's Reggie.
Loco, what are you?
Reggie's not following the
No, it's
actual
amazing.
format, so
And
he's
Loco's like realized already.
entirely following Loco's
Exactly.
attitude, and he's like, "Oh, I guess my good." I'm like, "You son of a bitch! You didn't even know the rules. You made me get excited for this."
He lacked
and
the
now-"
critical information. That's the peak of he lacked the critical information.
And you just knew, listen, even though you didn't know at the time, you essentially did know in that moment Loco Doco was getting fired.
That's when
This is
Reggie
the end
killed
of his
the
son.
messenger. Reggie's just like, the messenger must die.
Oh man, that's some good times.
By the way, I tell you what I would love to do. When I'm in the US, maybe we'll do this as well. We need to do like classic moments in League of Legends that we just like watch as though it was like best damn sports show or something. And we're just sat back bantering over it on stream as we watch moments like this, that classic game that Reginald played on Zillion back in the first LCS split, where he just roams at like level 1 and gets all his team kill. We've got to watch all the classic videos,
Oh,
Loco
man.
Doco and Mad Life.
We will,
Those
right?
girls. We'll watch them all.
You
and
need
be like,
to do a special breaking point whole season, just like
yes,
watch it.
of course.
some
We have to
popcorn
watch
in
Breaking Point with like some White Claws or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. Got to get Dwayne and have him watch.
Watching
something
Breaking
stupid.
Point with White Claws is, I think, the ultimate NA experience right now. That is.
That's peak LCS.
I show people Breaking Point, and teams are like, "Oh yeah, oh man, it was so rough back then." I was like, "Okay, imagine this in every team. They're the only ones that filmed it."
Yes. That is what's
Exactly.
funny is people don't realize that it was just every team that was like that. Look, mad props to Team Liquid for putting that video out. Thank you so much, because a lot of teams wouldn't want that kind of information to get out there, but it really is. I think we're going to look back at this even in 20 years and be like, this is what it was like back then. And these were the only people who had the balls to put the truth out there of how much of a shit show most of these teams are. So
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Dude, they asked me, it's like, "Oh yeah, how was your time back then? Like, how was with your coaches and your teams?" Like, there was no one. They're like, "What?" It's like, yeah, it was just players. that was it. Now, and then think now, like, what would it look like if you just let all the players do their thing? It'd be disaster.
Yes.
They would die. They actually burned down houses. We got to go. Oh, game cribs, dude. You got to add game cribs to that one.
Yeah, and also we should
Classic.
go back and watch all the old Chasing the Cup episodes with crying TSM players. There's so much good content, honestly, that we can just make a really shitty reaction stream of us sitting on a couch.
It's not a bad idea. The collection
you know that
is the
show.
part.
You know that show. So I have not behind me, but I have a full size green screen. You know that show, Action Bronson watches Ancient
Yes.
Aliens.
Love it.
You would love it, Crowds, of course.
But
you would.
only in small doses. Only in small doses. I can't watch too much of it.
Are you familiar with this show, Thorin? Like the concept
No,
of
never
this
heard
show?
of this.
Explain the show.
Okay, so you get this guy that's this big fat rapper, and he has all his buddies sitting in a set that is behind a green screen, and they get really high and they watch Ancient Aliens, but the editing is putting the show behind them on the green screen, so you don't actually really see the show. You just see these guys blazed out of their mind talking about the dumbest fucking show.
They believe it all.
Yeah, like,
it's really funny.
The editing really, it's all about the editing. The editors are amazing. So they're like, aliens, we're here. And then you just see a guy like,
like ripping a giant bong hit. It is super funny. And I have this green. All I'm saying is I have this green screen, and
I wanted to do a show like that for a while.
And we will not be doing those illegal things. Well, it's legal.
They're not illegal in California.
It's illegal in California. But it would be funny to be actually use the green screen and do that kind of show where we're watching old League of Legends content, because some of it is horrific.
It's hard to believe some of it's real.
I feel like
it is hard to believe some of it is real.
I feel like you would have to, like, it might be better though if you stick to the Ancient Alien script and do it by a T with the League of Legends content, because there's some of the, let's be real, it's gonna be hard watching an hour of Breaking Point if I'm not altering my consciousness.
all right, Alberto, you do that on your own time. If you happen to be there, then perfect. But yes, I do want to do that. So eventually, whenever you get out here, Thorin, that's something we can do on our own time on my channel.
All right.
I do think it would be super funny though to do. I would thoroughly love doing that.
You gotta watch it, Thorin.
You would love it, Thorin. I don't know why you haven't
like 5 minutes of it.
But yeah, I think we should actually go back and watch some of that, because what's funny is that now a lot of the Zoomers in League of Legends, they're not familiar with the TSM vlogs from 2012 when they were living in that shitty house on Long Island.
There's some crazy ones of those, by the way. There are some where Reginald is no joke using a certain F word that would not be allowed in LCS. That way, like when he's describing like Moscow 5 players, he is just dropping the other F bomb like a mother. He's going off, homie. Like there's some craziness on that channel. I'm amazed it hasn't all been scrubbed, but I bet it's all still there.
Oh man, and the parties back then too. Jeez, that was the Cursed Mansion. Oh my god, that was such a.
Remember,
we have to watch that video of
Sid Vicious and Elements.
Rating Elements. Oh, it's amazing. Because he's actually like slurring his words, because he is actually legit drunk. Like, it's amazing. It's so good. I can't believe that was real. That was like Breaking Point Zero. What
did he say to him? That was so funny. It was like, I'm gonna
something stupid, like I'm gonna get Locust or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna replace you with Locust.
We're one of the worst players of all time. As Crumbz will attest. So
I know he was a teammate of mine, and he was
Garbo.
So okay, I'll just tell you, this is how I realized I could be pro. Where I was watching Elements stream one time, because he had a tier list, way back. It was the Elements. Okay. No one else had a tier list, and if you were trying to go competitive, it was like, oh shit, like this, you can get a lot of information. So I kind of looked up to his tier list for a while, and then I got into a game, and I remember he was playing Cho'Gath, and I just destroyed him. And I thought, wait, this is a pro? All right, I'm pro now. All right.
I'm pro now.
Yeah. And then that was it. I was like, if this guy's doing it, pretty sure I can do it.
I love it. Well, I think that'll probably wrap up this show of the 9 Summoning Insight presented by AT&T. Thank you very much for joining us, Crumbz. It was fun. Nightwares is the Puma giveaway winner. I do want to do that as much as I hate that reaction stuff, I feel that there's value in this one because we can actually flesh out a lot of the history, and like it is a fun historical exercise for League of Legends team content to go back and kind of review this stuff. So
also, we're actually entertaining. We're not just going to sit there super blazed out of our minds on THE, just going like, shit, dog, I don't know, could be. Yeah. Like, we can actually make interesting comments,
I do think it'll be a good time. Yeah. So we'll work on that. We'll work on setting that up for whenever Thorin gets out here.
And you'll bring some people up to date, because I think there's a lot of fans that now have no context to what came before this, where they think it's all this shiny show. It's like, nah, man, it's
it was weird. It was scrappy and it was weird, and there weren't a lot of rules at the time, so there we were. Well, thank you very much to AT&T, Microsoft, Puma, all the sponsors who put this show on. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys again next week.